With a somber expression, a young woman reflects on the nature of existence, concluding that life is a terrible game. Because of this realization, she has made a decision to remove someone from her party. She states the reason plainly. He can no longer keep up with their battles. Her words hang in the air between them. The two stand facing each other on a city overpass, the urban sprawl stretching out behind them. The woman, Hagane-ko, a level 254 Valkyrie and leader of the Holy Sword Party, asks the young man if he can hear her. The man, Kaikeru, looks away, his expression troubled. His own status reveals a stark contrast. Kajura Kaikeru is a trap master, only level 75, though also affiliated with Holy Sword. Hagane's gaze softens as she reminisces about her arrival in Tokyo, recalling how the four of them climbed the ranks together right away. She continues, explaining that she had expected Tokyo to be crawling with monsters, but found it was just another big city where people and fortune gather. Now, she says she understands. Looking at Kaikeru, she clarifies that this was her personal decision, and that she has not yet told the other two members of their party. He processes the finality of her words. Expulsion, he murmurs to himself. He acknowledges that a leader has the right to expel anyone, but notes that such an action usually tarnishes a party's reputation. His head lowers in resignation. He begins, admitting that he should have been the one to bring it up himself, his sentence trailing off. He listens as Hagane-ko acknowledges his stubbornness, a trait he's possessed since childhood. She then instructs him to handle the necessary paperwork for his departure. She continues, offering to transfer a quarter of the party's shared assets to his account as compensation for the trouble she's caused, suggesting he use it to equip his replacement. He flatly refuses the offer. With a final look, he tells her it's been fun and bids her goodbye. Her eyes glisten as she returns the farewell. As he walks away, he reflects on the decision, admitting to himself that he already knew it was coming. Their recent dungeon expeditions had felt like suicide missions. A memory surfaces of a recent battle, a near-fatal encounter where a single grazing blow would have ended his life. It was only because of his friend's intervention that he survived. The fear of leaving them behind had paralyzed him, preventing him from quitting on his own terms. He continues his solitary walk, recalling how the disparity in talent has been a constant theme throughout his life, from the moment he was born to the day he first entered a dungeon. Despite this, he grits his teeth, a silent but hanging in his thoughts. Stopping on an overpass, he looks up at the sky, the unspoken thought finally taking form. All he wanted was to stay with them for just a little longer. And so, with that quiet wish lingering in the air, Kajura Kaikeru was officially expelled from the Holy Sword Party. Later, inside a public building, he overhears the whispers of others. They comment that his dismissal was long overdue, expressing surprise that he was ever part of Holy Sword to begin with. He grimaces, realizing how quickly gossip travels. Walking through the city streets, his thoughts turn to his job class, Trap Master. He scoffs at the title, concluding that with such a role, it was no wonder he was dragging down the geniuses in his party. He stumbles on the street, bumping into a passerby. It's Ko. He quickly apologizes, but she walks on, seemingly not even noticing the contact. He watches her go, reflecting on her strength as an adventurer. As he continues on his way, his thoughts drift to the state of the world. For 40 years, strange holes have hung in the sky. In this new reality, he muses, those who fall behind are simply left there. It has been 4 decades since these holes first tore open the sky above Tokyo. In that time, a new breed of human emerged. Those with special abilities, who came to be called adventurers. He finds himself on a train, where a broadcast discusses the future of humanity in dungeons. The report highlights Japan's most celebrated party, Holy Sword, his former party, noting their unprecedented achievement of conquering 300 dungeons. The broadcast continues, detailing the party's next objective, to clear the Origin Gate, one of the 7 legendary first dungeons yet to be conquered. He dismisses the thought, telling himself it's none of his concern anymore. But then, a flicker of movement in the sky outside the window draws his gaze. From the dark vortex hanging over the city, several smooth, ovoid shapes begin to descend. Suddenly, a grotesque, elongated arm with strange markings on its skin tears through the portal, reaching down towards the city below. His eyes widen in disbelief. He glances around the train car, a frantic question forming in his mind. Can anyone else see this? Outside, the monstrous hand now brandishes a glowing, ornate spear. With a deafening roar, the spear strikes. The world erupts in a shattering glass and twisted metal as a voice screams for everyone to run. In the silence that follows, only wreckage remains. The train car is a mangled tomb of steel and debris. Amidst the wreckage, Kaikeru screams, blood dripping from his lips. He watches the sky where the portal had been, realizing the creature that attacked has vanished. He wonders in disbelief if the assault could have come from the Origin Gate, a thought he immediately dismisses as impossible. His strength fails him, and he collapses onto the rubble. A desperate thought consumes him. He must warn the girls, his former party, before they get hurt. He weeps in frustration, questioning why he couldn't keep up, lamenting that if he was going to die, he wished he could have stayed with them until the end. As he lies there, a pair of feet stops just in front of his face. Looking up, he sees a woman with extraordinarily long, light-colored hair. She stands over him, clad in a dark, intricate gown whose lower half seems to be made of writhing tendrils. She smiles faintly, remarking on what an unsightly state he is in for a chosen one. She adds that the fact he was able to see the creature must be a sign of fate. He remains on the ground, his head resting on the debris, barely able to comprehend her words. Gathering what little strength he has left, he asks who she is. The woman pauses thoughtfully, suggesting she might be a god, or perhaps a demon. Her gaze remains locked on his as she simply says, "Let's see." Her eyes, which hold a strange, flower-like pattern, seem to stare directly into his soul. She leans in, her voice a near whisper as she poses a question. "You want it, don't you?" Without waiting for a reply, she asks if they should begin. At that moment, dark tendrils of energy lash out from her and wrap around Kaikeru, lifting his limp body into the air before her. She pulls him closer, her hand gently supporting the back of his head as she presses her lips against his. A powerful shock courses through Kaikeru's system. He lets out a strangled grunt, his eyes wide with surprise as an unknown energy surges into him from the point of contact. He convulses in midair, hunched over from the overwhelming influx of power. All the while, the mysterious woman watches with a faint, knowing smile. He finds himself back on the ground, the strange woman's words echoing in his mind. She tells him she has bestowed power upon him, but has no expectations, urging him to live freely. As she vanishes, he questions if the encounter was merely a dream, only to discover with a start that his wounds have completely healed. Pushing himself up from the debris, he hears a familiar voice. Ko is carefully making her way down the treacherous wreckage, calling out to check on his well-being as he struggles to his feet. As she descends, the unstable ground gives way. A massive slab of concrete breaks loose, threatening to crush them both. Ko screams as the debris plummets towards them. His eyes widen in alarm. He recognizes this as another trap. Desperately searching for a solution, his mind races to find a way to survive. His attention locks onto a specific option that appears before him, an arrow symbol. He stares at it, confused, trying to comprehend its meaning in the split second he has left. The realization hits him. This skill is new. A memory of the tendril-clad woman flashes through his mind, her declaration of giving him power. He wonders if this strangely displayed arrow symbol is the unique ability she spoke of. With no time left for deliberation, he acts. He shouts, activating the power, and a massive, glowing sigil emblazoned with a downward arrow materializes on the face of the falling slab. He yells for Ko to get down. The symbol's power takes hold, violently wrenching the colossal piece of wreckage from its path and slamming it into the ground a safe distance away. The immediate danger is averted. He looks up towards the sky, a faint residual trace of the sigil still visible. He contemplates the power he just used, understanding it to be a trap that can manipulate the movement of objects. Elsewhere, at the scene of the disaster, two investigators discuss the event. The older of the two presses his younger colleague, questioning the report that a giant arm, not an accident, caused the destruction. The younger man confirms this, but adds that no one witnessed it, reasoning that if something so massive had emerged from the origin gate, it would have caused citywide panic. He tells the young man to keep his words in mind, waving him off with a dismissive okay. As Kaikeru turns to leave, the investigator reminds him that he is no longer part of Holy Sword and should leave the matter to others. Later, in a forest near Tokyo, Kaikeru reflects on the futility of the conversation. He realizes the investigator wouldn't have believed him even if he had tried to explain, and wonders what he could have done against such a threat anyway. With a new resolve, he decides he's changed his mind. He now stands before a small, boar-like creature, his determination hardening. He resolves that if this is something that can help Holy Sword conquer the origin gate, then he will do what is necessary. The creature, a rank Melon board, stares back defiantly. Kaikeru sees this as a test, a chance to see if he truly has what it takes to stand beside his former comrades again. He springs into action, activating a trap. A massive blade erupts from the ground, slashing through the air, but the melon board deftly leaps aside. Kaikeru grimaces, realizing it won't fall for his traps so easily. He retreats, putting distance between himself and the creature. As a trap master, he cannot attack on his own. His power comes from luring monsters into his traps to earn experience. This reliance on indirect combat is why they are considered weak. Yet, Kaikeru remains focused, having faced many such enemies before. He prepares another trap, confident that if he stays calm, he can predict the creature's movements. But he doesn't just rely on prediction. Activating his arrow symbol, he sends a melon board hurtling through the air, its trajectory now under his complete control and aimed directly at his waiting trap. The creature has no time to react as it is slammed down onto a bed of sharp spikes that erupt from the forest floor, impaling it instantly. From a distance, Kaikeru watches the result of his strategy. He looks down at his hand, acknowledging his own weakness. He is not used to fighting at close range. However, a crucial realization dawns on him. As long as he can touch the monster, he can now force it into his traps. He stood, catching his breath, a hand pressed to his face as sweat beaded on his skin. The victory was his, but a single, dismissive thought cut through the relief. But so what? The doubt vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by a surge of fierce resolve. He clenched his fist, a triumphant look on his face as he realized he had finally obtained the power he had so desperately craved. Elsewhere, amidst the chaos of another battle, a young woman in full plate armor fought with grim determination. As she cleaved through her enemies, a similar, burning desire echoed in her mind. She wanted to become even stronger. Her concentration was broken by desperate cries from two men nearby. They pleaded with Eroju-sama to leave them and save herself, but she furiously roared back at them to be quiet, claiming their shouts were a distraction as she stood alone against a horde of monsters. In a cavernous area, a massive horde of small, goblin-like creatures swarms forward. In the midst of the chaos, the armored knight holds her ground, her shield deflecting multiple blows. One of the miners she is protecting desperately yells for her, urging her to leave them behind and save herself. Despite his plea, her face is a mask of grim determination, smudged with dirt. She acknowledges his words, but is overwhelmed by the sheer, seemingly endless number of assailants. Elsewhere, in a sun-dappled forest, Kajura Kaikeru is enveloped in a soft glow of energy. He realizes with a start that he has leveled up. It has been a while since he managed it on his own, and he reflects that he has been relying on others for too long. His thoughts are interrupted by the faint, metallic clang of battle in the distance. He pauses, realizing with a jolt that he shouldn't stray too far from his designated area. As the sound echoes again, he looks up towards its source. It is a known fact that ever since the first gates appeared, monsters from those realms have been slowly but surely invading this world. His gaze sharpens, pinpointing the origin of the noise. It's coming from a dark cave nestled in a nearby rock face. He moves closer, hearing the distinct sounds of combat growing louder. He realizes someone is fighting in there, which is strange. He had thought this particular area was unmonitored. Listening intently, he discerns the clash of weapons against shields. From the sound alone, he deduces they are completely on the defensive and in serious trouble. He considers contacting the association, but then hesitates, knowing that in the worst-case scenario, he could encounter monsters far stronger than the one he just fought. His brow furrows with indecision. His first instinct is to stay put, reasoning that reinforcements are coming and he should just wait. But that thought doesn't sit right. He breaks into a determined sprint towards the cave. Running away isn't the right choice. He has no idea how powerful the monsters are, and even if the armor is heavy, he should wear it. The only choice is to get there and help. He arrived just in time, stomping his foot down to activate a magical sigil on the ground. With the trap set, a wave of force erupted towards the battle. The blast was aimed at the horde, overwhelming the lone knight. She struggled to hold her shield steady as goblins hammered against it, her face a mask of grim determination. A heavy club slammed into her shield with a dull thud, forcing a cry of pain from her lips. Behind her, one of the miners she was protecting yelled out her title in alarm. The blow sent her stumbling back, her defense shattered. Overwhelmed and exhausted, she squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the final strike from a horned goblin looming over her. Before the creature could attack, the trap detonated. The explosion tore through the goblin ranks, sending bodies and weapons flying as the knight was knocked to the cavern floor. Into the newly cleared space stepped Kajura Kaikeru. He stood over the fallen knight and offered his help. Nearby, another warrior with short, dark hair took note of his sudden arrival, impressed by his speed and first-class equipment. She deduced he must be an adventurer. The dark-haired warrior asked if he would truly help them. Kaikeru clarified that he wasn't part of a rescue force, but had just been leveling up nearby. He assured them he wouldn't claim anything except for the experience points, if they would accept his aid. Her gaze shifted to the blonde knight and the miners she was shielding. A realization dawned on her. The knight had been protecting these civilians all on her own. With an agreement made, Kaikeru asked for her name. She introduced herself as Reize Agino and, identifying her job as a paladin, proposed that she handle defense while he focused on offense. He, in turn, gave his name as Kajura Kaikeru. When Agino asked about his job, he gave a startlingly direct answer. I'm a trap master. Her eyes widened in pure disbelief at the unfamiliar title. She watched, still processing his strange job class, as he took charge. He instructed her to wait and protect the miners, declaring he would handle the attacks. As the goblins closed in, he noted that they weren't going down as easily as when they were caught off guard. He leaped into the fray, realizing that luring them into traps one by one would not be enough. He needed a new technique, an area of effect attack. Though he didn't know why, a feeling of certainty washed over him. He felt he could do it, preparing to set a trap based on an arrow symbol. With a focused cry of trap fusion, a complex magical sigil flared to life on the cavern floor. From it, a blade of pure, dark energy erupted, slashing through the air towards the goblins. The technique, arrow symbol plus slash, unleashed a devastating web of intersecting energy blades that tore through the entire goblin horde in a single, overwhelming assault. In an instant, the cavern fell silent. The bodies of the goblins lay scattered across the floor, all felled by the single attack. The armored knight and the miners could only stare in stunned disbelief at the aftermath. She turned to him, asking if he was all right and questioning if he was a wizard. He calmly corrected her, stating he was a trap master. The knight retorted that it was impossible. She had never heard of a trap master capable of such a powerful attack. He then addressed the miners, who thanked him for saving them. He urged them that they needed to escape and asked if they could run. Internally, he admitted to himself that he had just tried the technique for the first time and was surprised that it worked. As they prepared to leave, a heavy stomp echoed from deeper in the cave. Kaikeru's expression hardened. He knew what was coming. When a knight asked what was wrong, He began to explain that his experience taught him that after a large fight like this, she looked on with dread, pleading for him not to say it. Her fears were confirmed. A mighty ogre, the boss of the horde, emerged from the passage, brandishing a massive, spiked club. He stared at the new foe, recognizing that it was clearly far stronger than him. He began to question himself, wondering if he should even try to fight it and whether his traps would even work. He orders the armored knight to get the others as far away as possible. She, taken aback by his command, questions his very nature. Ignoring her question, he turns his full attention to the massive beast, sword held ready. He issues a direct challenge, telling the ogre to come at him. The ogre lets out a guttural roar and charges forward, its club raised. He steels himself, recognizing this as a true test of his abilities. From a distance, Agino watches, coming to a realization. If traps can be fused, then she can set one of her own. She immediately puts her theory into practice, leaping into the fray. With a shout, she activates a trap, unleashing a double arrow symbol. The magical projectiles slam into the ogre's torso, piercing its thick hide. The creature bellows in agony from the unexpected assault. From a safe distance, she calls out to Kaikeru, explaining that with her weak defenses, she must attack from range. She acknowledges her daggers aren't powerful, but they will still inflict damage. He understands the strategy. They must slowly wear the beast down. Its fury now focused on a closer threat. The ogre swings its massive club down towards him. Meanwhile, the armored knight has led the miners to safety. One of them mentions that help should be on the way and asks her guide them. But her gaze is fixed on the battle behind them. She declares that she's going back, that she needs to help him. The force of the ogre's blow sends Kaikeru flying. As he struggles to recover, he sees the next attack coming and knows he cannot dodge it in time. Another of Agino's projectiles impacts the ground nearby, a desperate attempt to distract the beast. The ogre looms over him, mocking him for losing his weapon. But he has another plan. With a look of fierce determination, he slams his open palm onto the ground, setting a new trap, a fusion of arrow, symbol, and fire. He springs his trap. The symbols beneath the ogre's feet flare to life, unleashing a torrent of magical fire that erupts upwards in a devastating explosion. The blast fully engulfs the mighty ogre, its massive form silhouetted within the raging inferno. Watching from a distance, the newly arrived armored knight expresses her astonishment, noting that he possesses the speed of a rogue combined with the raw firepower of a wizard. With the fiery assault concluded, Kaikeru stands amidst the scorched earth, his gaze fixed forward. Agino watches him, a thought crystallizing in her mind. This man has the potential to completely change the way adventurers perceive the world. Kajura Kaikeru stands inside the Kanazawa branch of Reise, Japan's largest brand of adventure gear, his eyes wide as he takes in the displays of weaponry. As an employee thanks him for his business, he spots a familiar face. He recalls using a glow item she provided and realizes he'd heard her name before, but he is stunned to learn she is not only the president's daughter, but also the chief of the Hakariku branch. Later, seated across from her at a table, he listens as she expresses her gratitude for his help. She explains that during their survey for valuables, the monsters they encountered were nothing like the information they had. He finds this odd, questioning why a branch chief would be assigned a bodyguard duty. She explains that because she sent her subordinates into a dangerous situation, she felt compelled to take on the role herself. This was especially true, she adds, because she only received her position through her family. He listens quietly, concluding that she must often face accusations of nepotism. Her tone shifts as she states that thanking him wasn't the only reason for their meeting. She proposes they talk business, leaving him looking perplexed. Leaning forward slightly, she makes her offer directly. She wants him to sign a sponsorship contract with her. He expresses his confusion, pointing out that he has no public relations value and wouldn't look good on a poster. She clarifies that her offer isn't for marketing. She intends to support him directly. This only deepens his confusion, and he asks for her reasoning. With a steady gaze, she reveals her ambition for him. Let's see, she begins, become the strongest there is. He is taken aback by her declaration. He internally questions her judgment, thinking she should be seeking a top ranker like Holy Sword, not someone like him. He then confesses that he was expelled from his previous party. Unfazed, she calls it an investment, stating she has no intention of supporting a loss. She calmly asks why he was expelled. He looks down, admitting it was simply because he was too weak. After a moment of thought, she lowers her gaze and delivers her verdict on his former comrades. In that case, they must be blind. She watches him, her expression unreadable, as he clenches his fist and insists that she not badmouth his former comrades. He immediately softens, apologizing and admitting it wasn't his place to say anything. He understands she was only trying to cheer him up. In response, she offers a reassuring smile, stating that she doesn't mind his expulsion, so long as no crime was committed. She adds that she doesn't care if he isn't particularly strong either. He looks up, taken aback by her acceptance, and begins to question her reason. His gaze falls to the table as a single word echoes in his mind: stronger. The resolve hardens into a promise to himself. He will grow stronger, not just in body, but in mind as well. With this newfound determination, he stands and formally accepts the contract. The branch chief smiles, pleased, then casually asks which party he used to belong to. His answer hangs in the air as the scene shifts to the city outside, the Holy Sword Party. The branch chief is utterly stunned by the revelation. Meanwhile, far from the city, a member of that very party. Hagane Ko sits atop the remains of a colossal beast, her thoughts turning to the one who is no longer with them. Kaikeru. She gazes out over the desolate landscape from her perch on the monster's massive skull, wondering to herself if he is doing all right. She recalls a conversation with her Holy Sword teammates, Itomi Kukuri and Ashitara Yukiko. Kukuri had stated that it was for the best, reasoning that they couldn't continue exposing Kujura to danger simply because of their own selfish desires. Yukiko had solemnly agreed. As Kukuri walked away from her through a shallow stream, she had offered a final piece of advice, telling Ko not to blame herself for the decision. But Ko had no intention of forgiving herself. She internally acknowledged her role in the matter, admitting that she was the one who had cut off Kaikeru's life as an adventurer. Kukuri, noticing her somber expression, had simply remarked on how serious she always was. Kukuri then posed a startling question, asking if Ko had proposed to him at the same time she fired it. She elaborated, musing that if Ko had tried to soften the blow with a dramatic declaration, like claiming she wouldn't be able to live if he died, the outcome might have been surprisingly positive. Flustered by the thought, Ko silently insisted there was no way she could have done such a thing. Kukuri continued her analysis, questioning if Ko was the difficult type of woman who just hopes a man will figure out her feelings on his own. Kukuri laughed, wondering aloud how the situation had become so complicated, and lamented that in the end, no one confessed their feelings. Yukiko chimed in, agreeing that it had been a good opportunity for them to get together, but that Ko had put the cart before the horse. Kukuri then grew more philosophical, warning Ko that while it might feel like it only happened yesterday, time would pass, things would change, and before she knew it, they would find themselves far apart. The memory fades as Yukiko's voice brings Ko back to the present. She mentions a rumor she heard about plans to take on the Origin Gate, a statement that startles Kukuri. Ko confirms that the rumor is true. She reveals it is a plan for conquering the Origin Gate, a strategy that was recently shared exclusively with the leaders of the top-ranking parties. A powerful energy seems to emanate from her as she speaks. She explains to her companions that there will be an election test in the fall around December. If they are recognized as powerful enough to join, it will be publicly announced. Her words hang in the air as she and Kukuri exchange a look, both contemplating the future. It is Yukiko who breaks the silence, making a bold suggestion. They should all quit being adventurers after they conquer the Origin Gate. She continues, her gaze distant as she reveals her personal motivation. She wants to take Kaikeru and move to a country that allows polygamy. Kukuri turns to Ko with a smile, amused by their friend's declaration, and asks what on earth she is talking about. Elsewhere, Kujura Kaikeru arrives before a traditional building cordoned off with Kipiayuti tape. Accompanied by a woman in a maid's uniform, he questions if this is the dungeon. The woman in the maid uniform answers him, confirming that Lady Aquino has transferred the rights to this dungeon to him. She introduces herself as Toga Natsum, the inspector in charge, explaining that she hadn't expected to be assigned to a low-rank dungeon like this. She clarifies that she is only present for observation and will not be able to help him. As Kujura acknowledges this, he draws his sword. Natsum wishes him luck. He enters the dungeon, sword drawn, immediately engaging monsters. He resolves to first confirm the range and cooldown of his abilities before dedicating himself fully to fighting practice. His practice leads him to a large, ornate door. He reflects that he has never entered a boss room alone before. He realizes that if he can master his arrow symbol ability to strengthen himself, he might be able to fight on par with someone of a fighter-type job. He thought of Ko, Yukiko, and Kukuri. He had wanted to ask them to wait for him, but now he resolved to catch up to them instead. Before him, a formidable foe materialized, a rank B goblin general, flexing its power with a crack of its knuckles. The creature immediately unleashed its power, causing the very ground to erupt in a barrage of sharp spikes. He deftly dodged and parried the assault, quickly understanding that the entire chamber was the monster's weapon, preventing him from closing the distance. Frustrated, he knew he had to find an opening. His goal was clear, get close enough to crush its armor with one decisive hit. He continued to weave through the deadly projectiles, searching for his chance. That chance arrived. Leaping high above the field of spikes, he declared the monster's assault was over. Now it was his turn. He channeled his power, unleashing an arrow symbol slash. The empowered slash descended like a meteor shower, striking the goblin general and forcing a pained roar from its throat. As the creature reeled, he announced that the trap was now set. In an instant, a far more potent ability activated, the arrow symbol quartet, multiplying his power fourfold. The resulting strike was absolute, cleaving the goblin general cleanly in two from head to toe. As the monster's form disintegrated into motes of light, he stood in the quiet aftermath, his gaze falling upon the item it had left behind. He examined the drop, a ring imbued with a fire trap. While he acknowledged he could make use of it, he ultimately decided it would be better suited for Reize. Stepping out of the dungeon, he found the entrance cordoned off and a welcoming party waiting. Reize, Kukuri, and Natsum stood by, while Ko watched from a slight distance. Ashitara Yukiko, unable to contain her excitement, rushed forward, joyfully shouting that he had finally come out. Inside a cavern, Kujura Kaikeru stands cloaked in shadow as shimmering particles dissipate before him. He identifies the remnants as a monster drop. He examines a ring left behind, noting its fire trap ability. While not entirely useless, he considers it a modest gain, perhaps something he could give to Reize. He proceeds deeper into the dungeon, surrounded by glowing spheres of energy. He reflects on his progress, acknowledging that while it's slow, he is definitely leveling up. As he emerges from the dungeon entrance, a young woman with long, dark hair rushes toward him, exclaiming with relief that he is finally out. The girl's eyes sparkle as she admires his new cloak, calling it pretty and saying it suits him well. She marvels at it, noting she's never seen gear like it in shops, and excitedly asks if it's a rare drop. She continues, explaining her curiosity about the kinds of people who enter dungeons. Nearby, Toga Natsum explains to a companion that she had warned the girl it was a private dungeon, but was ignored. Kaikeru looks on, completely bewildered by the girl's forwardness. With a bright smile, the girl introduces herself as Tsukige Tsukasa, adding that she is 14 years old. Kaikeru quietly processes this new information, realizing she must be an adventurer. Tsukasa then suggests they trade contact information, complimenting him on his apparent strength. He observes her, thinking she seems new to this life and how unusual it is to see an adventurer so young in Tokyo. He turns away dismissively, stating that he doesn't even know her and admonishing her for being so careless with her information outside of a formal raid. As he walks off, she runs after him, declaring that she is a rank B assassin. She catches up, pleading with him and explaining that she needs a partner for a dungeon exploration. To prove her point, she presents her adventurer card, revealing her rank. Kaikeru is stunned. She's ranked higher than he is. He asks her about her friends, wondering why her classmates who are also adventurers don't accompany her. Tsukasa explains that they won't go all the way with her, as the places she wishes to explore are deemed too dangerous. He then questions why she doesn't simply explore solo, but she replies with a gentle smile, admitting that being alone is lonely. With a sigh of resignation, he agrees, but warns her not to call him constantly, as he is busy. Tsukasa erupts in a cheer of yay as they exchange contact information with a quick flick of their cards. As she turns away, a triumphant thought echoes in her mind. Trap Master. Her excitement is palpable as she exclaims this is her first time exploring with someone like him. Waving goodbye, she promises to message him later and dashes off, leaving Kaikeru to reflect that her arrival and departure were like a storm. Later, walking through the city, he muses that he'll be encountering more adventurers like her now. He feels a sense of relief that he isn't well known outside of Tokyo. As he approaches a building, a young woman with wavy, light-colored hair greets him, welcoming him back. Inside, she asks him about the dungeon. He reports that he feels capable of handling a dungeon of a slightly higher rank. Hearing this, she offers to prepare the next one for him, an offer he readily accepts. She then addresses him by a different name, Reize, and holds out a small ring, asking if he would take it. He looks down at the object and calmly agrees. His simple acceptance throws her completely off guard. A deep blush spreads across her face as she stares, utterly flustered by his reaction. An awkward silence hangs between them. He maintains a neutral, slightly confused expression, while she remains visibly embarrassed, unable to meet his gaze. Flustered, she closes her eyes and asks Kaikeru what he thinks it means when a man gives a woman a ring. He quickly apologizes, explaining that he didn't mean anything by the gesture. He only saw the ring as a piece of equipment from the day's dungeon. Unconvinced, she presses him, asking why he would give it to her in that case. Her mind races. Even though he claimed it was a sponsor's gift from a dungeon run, for her, the moment had felt like a special first step in their relationship. She had wanted him, Reize, to have this memento, a moment she wanted to share with him. With a sense of resignation, she closes her eyes, realizing that in the end, nothing has truly changed between them. He then adds a simple, "Oh, sorry," as a new thought occurs to him. He had put the ring on her left ring finger. The implication of his action finally dawns on her, leaving her stunned. Later, alone in his room, he sits on the edge of his bed and examines the contact card he received from the girl he met earlier, Tsukige. His phone then rings. On the other end of the line, Tsukasa asks if he wants to join a temporary party with her the next day, chiding him for being unreachable despite his claims of being busy. She explains that an acquaintance is forming a team and that everyone in the party is around his rank. He listens, contemplating the offer. While clearing a dungeon with a temporary party of strangers seems ideal, he hesitates. As he remains on the phone, the room seems to darken, and he is surrounded by the haunting, white silhouettes of figures with gaping mouths, a grim reminder of past experiences. His thoughts drift back to a memory of a young girl, his sister, who pleaded to join him on a quest. He recalls his own reluctance, believing the party leader would refuse her, even though she insisted the leader was nice. Returning to the present, he speaks with Tsukasa on the phone, agreeing to join her party on the condition that the leader approves. Overjoyed, she thanks him and suggests they meet the next day, eagerly anticipating their adventure. The next day, a large, boisterous man with a wide grin roars his approval, welcoming Kaikeru to the team without a moment's hesitation. The man's immediate acceptance seems too simple. Kaikeru, his expression wary, questions if they're truly fine with his participation, specifically mentioning his role as a trap master, a detail that causes the other party members to pause. In response, the leader loudly dismisses his concern, shouting that even if he is a trap master, it makes no difference. He explains that at their current rank, one specific job doesn't matter nearly as much as it might in a place like Tokyo. Following this exchange, Tsukasa turns to Kaikeru to reassure him. She points out that the party members seem like good people and tells him not to worry, adding that his honest appearance is the most important trait for building trust within a dungeon. With the team's anxieties settled, Tsukasa raises her arm in excitement, rallying the group to finally begin their raid on the dungeon. As they stand at the entrance, Kaikeru's gaze hardens. A small, indistinct orb of light materializes before his eyes. The light triggers a sudden, jarring memory. He sees himself in the past, clad in different gear, turning abruptly as if startled. The memory sharpens, revealing the faces of his former party members. He recalls a strange, unsettling feeling from that time, a sensation that now washes over him once more, leaving him confused and shaken. He is snapped back to the present by the chaos of battle. His new party leader, a boisterous man, shouts a warning that wolf-like monsters are charging their way, ordering his companions to hold their positions. As the party engages the beasts, a small, masked girl observes from the sidelines. She notes that everyone is strong, especially Tsukasa, whose speed and flawless control over her movements mark her as a future top-tier adventurer. She then turns and calls out to Kaikeru, urging him to set the trap. He calmly replies that it is already done. A glowing magical sigil materializes before him as, moments later, one of the charging wolves is violently impaled by dark spikes erupting from the ground. His other party members, the blonde man and the man with glasses, watch with approval, remarking that it was not bad. While Tsukasa cheers for the next wave, the boisterous leader complains that the older members need a rest. Kaikeru, however, remains troubled. He wonders if the strange feeling he had earlier was just his imagination, given how smoothly everything is proceeding. The party presses onward through the dense forest. Tsukasa observes that they have made good progress and that the boss room should be close. As they walk, the boisterous leader glances back over his shoulder, his expression turning serious and calculated. A thought crosses his mind. It is about time. In a sudden move, he lunges and grabs Tsukasa, restraining her in a tight grip. Kaikeru is knocked aside. The leader sneers that even a high-ranked adventurer is just a scrawny punk once caught. The blonde man warns Kaikeru not to interfere, confident he could not stop them anyway. As he recovers, Kaikeru has a sudden realization. He finally understands the source of his earlier unease, the distinct sound of high-rank gear, a sound he has heard too many times. He confronts the leader, questioning if he is disguising his equipment to appear low-rank. His sword now leveled at the three men, Kaikeru makes his accusation clear. He declares that they are not adventurers at all, but bandits. The leader continues to hold Tsukasa captive, a confident smirk on his face as his allies stand ready. He stood firm, his expression hardening as Tsukasa reeled from the revelation. She couldn't believe they were bandits, realizing they had been the targets all along, lured in by the pretense of being at the same level. Kaikeru's assessment was colder. Judging by their movements, they were clearly not C-rank, and they possessed high-rank gear. Tsukasa, held captive, couldn't reconcile their earlier kindness with this betrayal. The boisterous leader sneered, explaining that the disguise was precisely to make them lower their guard. He mocked her, questioning what a supposed trap master could possibly do in this situation. He then burst into a derisive laugh, shouting that no one would ever team up with someone like her, a high-rank adventurer who looks down on others, unless they possessed rare gear worth stealing. As the three bandits faced him, the small masked girl slung over the leader's shoulder urged Kaikeru to run and warn the others. He calmly refused, assuring her that he was fine, because he was strong. His confidence was met with a sneer from the boisterous leader, who shouted at him to stop talking nonsense. He questioned how a mere trap master could possibly escape a situation that even he couldn't handle. Kaikeru's gaze remained unwavering. Overhearing this, Tsukasa's face contorted in anguish. She cried out that he was going to die here too, and it was all her fault for dragging him into this mess. A quiet, pained apology escaped her lips. Her despair deepened as she lamented her fleeting hope. She had finally thought she might not be lonely anymore, only for it to end like this. Across from her, Kaikeru stood poised for battle, two swords drawn as enemy spears were leveled against him, his jaw set with grim determination. He spoke, his voice steady. "Sorry, Tsukiga." As he uttered her name, the blonde bandit lunged forward, blades swinging. But he had no intention of running. The path he aimed for, he declared, did not permit him to ignore trash like this. In a sun-dappled forest, the boisterous party leader leans over his fallen female companion, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. He glares towards an unseen figure and demands, "Huh? What the hell did you just say?" His question is met with cold indifference. Kajura Kaikeru stands opposite the party's blonde swordsman, his expression flat as he repeats his words with deliberate calm. "I called you ignorable trash." The insult ignites the party leader's fury. His face contorts in rage, veins bulging on his forehead as he bellows an order to his companions. "Don't go mouthing off, you trash-tier job punk. Kill him." Before they can react, Kaikeru moves. He announces the activation of a trap set and an arrow sigil. A magical glyph flares to life, catching the blonde adventurer completely by surprise and launching him violently into the air. The blonde man cries out as he is flung skyward. Below, his comrades can only watch in stunned silence as Kaikeru completes his technique, a complex sigil glowing brightly at his feet. With a crash, the adventurer lands hard on the forest floor, defeated. Kaikeru stands over the fallen man, his sword held ready, as the party's glasses-wearing member stares, aghast at the sudden turn of events. He then addresses the stunned man, explaining that he had wanted to wait for them to move first, but they were too slow. Kaikeru dismisses their expensive equipment, stating that no matter how rare their gear is, they are still just C rank on the inside. From the side, the party leader seethes, calling him a bastard. With the others neutralized, Kaikeru turns his full attention to the party leader. The bandaged girl lies motionless on the ground nearby, a casualty of a swift, one-sided conflict. The leader hesitates, his bravado faltering as he eyes the glowing sigil near Kaikeru's hand. He knows with certainty that if he touches that arrow sigil, he is finished. Sensing the man's hesitation, Kaikeru acts. He tosses a flashbang, and as the leader roars, blinded by the sudden burst of light, Kaikeru surges forward, cloaked in the sigil's power, to press his attack. He faces his opponent, who is now on his hands and knees, coughing from the lingering effects of the flash. The larger man, despite his compromised state, steels himself, recalling past battles fought in sandstorms and underwater. He resolves to be flawless, leaving no openings for an attack. The party leader seethes with rage, questioning how Kaikeru dares to mock them. In response, Kaikeru calmly tells him to watch closely, stating his intention to kill him and strip him of all his gear. He dismisses the equipment, however, stating that it is not the source of the man's strength. The party leader looks down at his own gear, reflecting that he took it all from people who had mocked him in the past. That, he believes, is how he became strong. His conviction hardens into a furious roar. He proclaims that the ones who survive are the strong ones, and since he beat those other challengers and won, he has proven his strength. Kaikeru flatly rejects this philosophy. He declares that the man didn't win. He lost due to a weakness of the heart. As he speaks, he lunges forward, his cloak dissolving into dark fragments while a complex sigil materializes on the ground beneath his opponent. The sigil flares as he closes the distance in an instant. He rushes past the larger man, their bodies brushing against each other in a single, swift motion. In the next moment, he is behind the party leader, grappling him from the back, his opponent's face frozen in surprise. With his opponent immobilized, Kaikeru speaks, his tone contemplative. He muses that the lessons they both learned growing up were likely not so different, recalling the most important trait for a dungeon explorer: the need to entrust your back to someone. The confrontation fades, and the scene shifts back to the campsite. Tsukage's Tsukasa speaks to him, explaining that she had called for backup. She reports that no monsters appeared, and that she is feeling fine now, concluding that even if his aggressive display had been a bluff, it ultimately saved them. He watches the other party members carry their defeated leader away, remarking that the camouflage cloth was a great help. With all his gear, he notes the man won't die so easily. Tsukasa quietly agrees. Tsukasa then turns to him and apologizes. He correctly guesses it's because of the other party leader's accusation that he had dragged her into the situation and tells her not to worry, confessing that he was actually glad she had invited him. He then takes stock of their situation, noting that their party has been reduced from 5 members to just the 2 of them. With a sigh, he suggests that they should probably call it a day. She, however, looks at him with renewed determination, asking if they really can't continue. She insists that she doesn't want to end the day on such a low note. Seeing her resolve, he asks if she will continue to run the dungeon with him. With a bright expression, she immediately agrees. Internally, he feels a sense of relief, glad to see that her spirit remains unbroken. With their decision made, Tsukasa enthusiastically urges them forward, and the 2 venture deeper into the wooded dungeon. Unseen by the pair, Toga Natsum observes them from a distance. She had been prepared to jump in if anything happened, but now realizes with some relief that her intervention wasn't necessary. Satisfied, she decides it's time to file her report. As she prepares to depart, the scene below shows Kaikeru and Tsukasa mid-battle, effortlessly dispatching a pack of wolf-like creatures. Tsukasa expresses her amazement at his skill, asking if it's a unique ability. He confirms that it is, explaining that he had kept it hidden as a trump card. She then asks if he feels it's alright to reveal such a skill to her. He looks away, claiming it was just a slip-up. Tsukasa playfully teases him, asking if he's fallen for her, which causes him to admit he wasn't being entirely honest. All the while, they continue to cut down the monsters around them. Their path clear to monsters, they finally arrive before a massive, ornate set of doors. Tsukasa raises her weapon in triumph, excitedly announcing their arrival at the boss room as Kaikeru stands ready behind her. She surveys the vast, snowy landscape, noting that the scenery hasn't changed and there's no boss in sight. Kaikeru cautions her to keep her guard up, reminding her that enemies sometimes hide just beyond the entrance. His warning proves prescient as a sudden, unseen force strikes at them from multiple directions, forcing them both onto the defensive. The attack is over as quickly as it began, leaving only a dark splatter on the snow. He asks if she saw what happened, but she admits she didn't. He expresses his disbelief, insisting he was on high alert and couldn't possibly have missed. He quickly deduces the nature of their foe, identifying it as a wolf-type monster with stealth abilities. Tsukasa, her expression grim, confirms his assessment without a doubt. As if summoned by their words, a translucent wolf materializes behind him, its form shimmering like a phantom. He names it a stealth wolf, realizing its spectral howl is a summons for its pack. In response to the call, a pack of corporeal wolves emerges from the snowy plains. He addresses their unseen leader, surmising its tactic, to hide and endlessly spawn more wolves to do its bidding. Tsukasa grimly agrees with his theory. They launch themselves into the fray, engaging the wolf pack. He shouts that their only path to victory is to find and destroy the original stealth wolf. The realization dawns on her. They've been forced into a deadly game of hide-and-seek, with them as the seekers. He immediately sets a trap, unleashing a fiery sigil that erupts among the beasts. As the smoke clears, she quickly counts the remaining enemies, 9, then 10, and understands with certainty that the pack is indeed regenerating infinitely. She struggles against the onslaught, her thoughts racing. It's nearly impossible to react when the true target blends in so perfectly, and they have no way to search for it. Suddenly, he yells her name, Tsukigase, and asks if she can hold off the pack by herself for just 10 seconds. Without hesitation, she agrees to his plan. As she engages the wolves, he vaults away from the immediate combat, preparing another sigil. This time, a slashing variant, to set a new trap. He shouted his commands, confirming that the number of sigils he had placed was sufficient. He urged Tsukasa to move even faster, to push herself to her absolute limit. Responding to his call, her eyes widened with fierce determination as she held her ground. The sigils detonated in a cataclysmic blast, tearing the ground asunder and annihilating the wolf pack in a single, violent instant. The shockwave sent them both flying as Kaikeru cried out her name. Before she could recover, alone, Fiery Wolf materialized and lunged. She realized with a jolt of panic that she had to destroy it before it could reveal its location. But the attack connected, and she cried out in pain. Kaikeru caught her as she fell, commending her for holding out so well. He lamented that they had lost track of the boss's location, but Tsukasa, looking up at him, expressed confidence. She explained that with the pack gone, she could now focus entirely on tracking the howl and would pinpoint its location if it made another sound. Hearing this, Kaikeru told her not to worry, as he had a plan. As she gazed at him, a profound realization washed over her. She found the experience exhilarating. Fighting alongside him was so much fun. To her, the feeling was akin to love. In that moment, she felt she was seeing the real Kajura Kaikeru for the first time. Her resolve hardening, she looked him directly in the eye and posed a serious question. Would he officially team up with her? Standing amidst the desolate landscape, Tsukigase, Tsukasa looks at Kajura Kaikeru with earnest hope. She admits that she has never once considered joining a party other than Holy Sword, but now asks him directly, calling him Oni-chan, if he will officially team up with her. He thanks her for the offer, but asks for some time to think, stating that their first priority is the stealth wolf. Tsukasa accepts his terms, though her expression becomes more somber and contemplative. With the decision postponed, their attention returns to the hunt. They scan the empty plains, and Tsukasa observes that they've lost sight of their quarry again, questioning what their next move should be. He moves with quiet confidence, signaling for her to be stealthy. He whispers that he knows where the creature is and that he just needs her help to proceed. She looks at him with a bright, admiring smile, her confidence in him fully restored. She tells him he is truly amazing and that she is counting on him for the fight that is about to begin. Her trust is immediately put to the test as a large, ethereal wolf monster with flaming fur materializes in the field before her. She stands her ground, daggers drawn and ready for combat. From a higher vantage point, Kaikeru watches the scene unfold. With his sword drawn, he snaps his fingers, triggering the next stage of his plan. His action causes the wolf monster to swell to a colossal size, its spectral form towering over the landscape. Kaikeru looks on, confirming to himself that this was intentional. He set this up. As the giant beast lunges, Tsukasa springs into action, leaping high into the air. Below her, a glowing magical sigil activates on the ground, marked with 4 arrow symbols, revealing the nature of the trap. She soars towards the ensnared creatures, the giant wolf and a second, smaller one that has appeared beside it. From his perch, Kaikeru watches as his partner descends to strike. She plunges downward, a blur of motion. Kaikeru, watching from a distance, can barely track her movement. Despite her incredible speed, he has faith that she will strike true. With a determined cry, she commits to the attack. As she descends through the shimmering energy of the trap, her expression is one of pure focus. With daggers drawn, she prepares to deliver the finishing blows to the ensnared beasts below. The attack concludes, and the monsters are defeated. Kaikeru rushes to her side, calling out her name. He looks at her, seeking confirmation. We did it. She stands silently for a moment amidst the fading motes of light, the remnants of their vanquished foes. Turning to face him, a soft smile graces her lips. Thanks, Oni-chan, she says warmly. Sometime later, outside the Reize building, the events of the battle are recounted. The listener, understanding the situation, acknowledges what happened. On a terrace cafe, the branch chief sits with Kaikeru and Tsukasa. She expresses her simple gladness that they both returned in one piece as Toga Natsum approaches with a tray. The branch chief addresses the maid directly, surprised to see Toga Natsum. Natsum explains that she works as a maid when not on observer duty. She then turns to Kaikeru, expressing her profound relief at his safe return, much to his surprise. As Tsukasa watches them, slightly unsettled, Kaikeru turns to her. He asks if she thought Natsum's maid outfit was just a hobby, which she quickly denies. He admits, however, that he also found it strange she wasn't wearing her usual observer's uniform. He stands beside Tsukasa, who looks up at him and asks if he is nervous. He seems to acknowledge that her guess is at least partially correct. The group is now seated at a cafe table, with Toga standing attentively nearby. He turns to Tsukasa, asking if she gets along with everyone at the branch. She ignores his question, leaning forward with an intense gaze. She reminds him that she still hasn't received his answer and asks again, directly, will he form a party with her? He looks away, apologizing for making her wait. The branch chief, overhearing the exchange, expresses her surprise, clarifying if they were indeed discussing forming a party. He finally gives his answer, stating that he has no intention of forming an official party. Tsukasa then explains that she already has a party she once belonged to, and her ultimate goal is to reunite with them. Hearing his refusal, the branch chief interjects, questioning his reluctance and suggesting that it should be fine. She elaborates on her point, listing the many benefits of forming a party. Not only does it allow for more effective leveling, but the coordination required also makes one stronger. She warns Kaikeru that if he continues to work solo, he'll never learn to properly use skills designed for team combat. She then connects this directly to his own ambitions, stating that if his goal is to rejoin the group known as Holy Sword, then accepting Tsukasa's offer is purely beneficial. He bristles at the suggestion, asking if she truly expects him to take advantage of Tsukasa's kindness, knowing full well that he would eventually leave her. Tsukasa, meanwhile, reacts with shock upon hearing the name Holy Sword. Before the argument can continue, Tsukasa looks directly at him and states plainly that she doesn't mind. Her expression brightens, her eyes sparkling with determination. She declares that if his condition is the only way they can form a party, she will gladly accept it, refusing to let something so trivial prevent them from teaming up. He listens, his own expression unreadable. He reflects on his belief that he always learns from others and contemplates what it would mean to form a party with someone other than his old comrades in Holy Sword. His mind made up, he formally addresses her. He states clearly that he would like to team up with her, Tsukigase. He confirms his decision. Tsukasa, seeking final assurance, asks if he understands that he'll be helping to fulfill her dream. As the branch chief declares the matter settled, Tsukasa beams and shouts her glad acceptance. With the agreement settled, Tsukasa immediately turns to the branch chief, asking if she, Reize, would consider joining them as well. She looks surprised by the invitation. The branch chief explains that she had tried to let go of her own reservations and asks Tsukasa if she would mind her joining. Tsukasa responds with delight, exclaiming that the more members, the better. The branch chief then formally accepts, stating that they do need a tank, after all. At her agreement, Tsukasa leaps to her feet with her arms thrown wide in celebration. She cheers that it's finally their party, a dream come true. The excitement settling, the branch chief takes charge of the logistics, offering to handle the paperwork. She then poses the first official question. What should they call their new party? Tsukasa immediately looks to Kaikeru, insisting that he should be the leader and make the decision. He considers the question, his gaze distant and thoughtful. After a moment of quiet contemplation, he provides a one-word answer, vestige. He explains his reasoning, admitting that while chasing the past can be embarrassing, it is currently his greatest motivation. The name is met with approval. Tsukasa thinks it sounds cool, and the branch chief agrees it's a good name. With that, the branch chief declares them the party members of Vestige. Tsukasa, seizing the moment of friendship, suggests they all exchange contact information. As she stood with her new party, the branch chief read from a file, stating her name and age. Tsukigase Tsukasa, 14 years old. Her eyes widened as she stared at the branch chief, a mistaken thought forming in her mind. Male. This prompted Kaikeru to laugh, telling Tsukasa he knew she wouldn't be able to tell that the branch chief was a girl. As the chief chuckled along, a flustered Tsukasa pointed and exclaimed in disbelief, "You're a boy?" Meanwhile, in a high-rise office overlooking the city, Reize Agino received the news. She processed the information with a neutral expression. Kaikeru had formed a party. Elsewhere, Ashitari Yukiko gave a report to Toga. She explained that she couldn't refuse a request from her cute kohai without her lady's knowledge. Since Kaikeru hadn't returned home, she had to use her connections to locate him, and she asked Natsum to continue the surveillance. Her thoughts then turned to Kaikeru himself, whom she considered an adventurer idiot. She admitted to herself that she found this quality irresistibly cute, but her expression hardened as she stood before a massive, chaotic structure. Despite her affection, she judged that he was still not ready for a place like this. Her contemplation was cut short as two monstrous, bird-like creatures with ornate, mask-like faces descended upon her. Without hesitation, she unleashed a devastating power. Dark energy erupted from her body, forming immense, shadowy claws that tore the creatures apart. As the hand of the death god struck, she uttered a single cold command, "Die." Standing amidst the dissipating energy and drifting feathers, her resolve was clear. If Kaikeru was pursuing them, then she had no choice but to complete her objective before he could interfere. Having cleared the way, she regrouped with Kokuri and Natsum. When Kokuri asked if the path was safe, Yukiko gave a casual peace sign, assuring them it was hunky-dory and there was no problem. She resolved to keep this a secret from her companions, believing Ko would lose her edge if she knew the truth. As Toga prompted them to go, Itomi Kokuri quietly agreed. With that, She and Kukuri moved forward, their expressions grim and focused. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a towering skyscraper stood against the night sky. Inside, Kajura Kaikeru, now in a formal suit, listened as his sister expressed her sheer excitement. She marveled that it was her first time doing something like this and commented on her dress. He remarked that it was quite the outfit, to which she playfully replied that it suited her perfectly because she was so cute. She then turned to him, observing that he seemed a bit restless. He admitted his unease, confessing a long-standing difficulty with neckties. Their conversation was interrupted by the branch chief, who appeared in an elegant gown to ask if they were ready. Kaikeru's sister beamed, declaring that she was as ready as could be. With the three of them assembled, the branch chief announced it was time to depart. They were heading to Vestige's first battle. A chronicle of events begins with the concept of raid battles. Large-scale operations where multiple parties unite their strength to challenge a formidable dungeon as a single, massive party. Within a grand, bustling hall, Hagenko looks around in awe, asking Kajura Kaikeru if there are always so many parties gathered like this. He explains that this occasion is special, primarily due to the person in the leading role. At the front of the hall, a young woman with a high ponytail introduces herself with a bright smile as Kiryu and Jessica, the raid organizer, expressing her joy at how the event has turned out. In the crowd, the Reize president's daughter remarks on Jessica's youth and her foreign lady aura, noting that despite her looks, she is a witch with good prospects. She clarifies that Jessica is the employer for this raid, or more precisely, her father is. Ko asks if this means they will be sponsored and paid, and Kaikeru confirms it. He explains that they are after the achievement of clearing a high-ranked dungeon and that raid battles, with their large number of capable allies, allow for 1 or 2 novices to be carried through. He continues, stating this is why the pay is so high, to gather adventurers more capable than usual. This creates a win-win situation. The hired adventurers gain experience in a high-rank area, and the organizer secures her achievement. It is a reward for both sides. Ko listens, a look of contemplation on her face. She voices her thoughts, admitting that it feels somewhat unfair. Kaikeru simply states that it isn't his place to comment, especially after being carried by Japan's top party himself. Meanwhile, on stage, Jessica continues her address. She expresses her honor at meeting so many excellent adventurers. However, she notes that while she's grateful they recruited more people than planned, she had asked Reize earlier about their participation when she went to register Vestige. Her address takes a sudden turn as she makes a formal declaration. Due to the overwhelming response, she announces that tomorrow, a selection test will be held for all prospective raid members. The announcement sends a ripple of shock through the crowd. Jessica specifies that the test will consist of duels, and from all those present, they will only select 20 members. Ko is aghast at the thought of people being sent home, but Kaikeru calmly remarks that this happens often. As the Reize president's daughter excuses herself to greet others, Ko panics, deciding she must eat as much as possible while she still has the chance. Amidst the chatter and the clinking of glasses, Kaikeru stands back, his gaze sweeping across the room, filled with his potential allies and rivals. He found the situation nostalgic, though he had ultimately left all the social interactions to Ko. A worry surfaced. The fact that he was expelled from Holy Sword might cause trouble. He could only hope nobody knew as he wondered what to do. His thoughts were interrupted by a young woman in a school uniform nearby. She was muttering anxiously to herself, fearing she might not be able to join the raid. He realized there was another student present besides Tsukigase. The girl, lost in her panic, declared she needed to win, just before bumping into someone. The impact sent her stumbling forward. With a cry, she tripped and fell, sending a plate of food scattering through the air. Kaikeru shouted out as she landed hard on another guest who was already on the floor, crying out in pain from the collision. She immediately knelt beside the person she had fallen on, apologizing profusely. The man on the ground simply asked what had gotten her so panicked and urged her to calm down. Her eyes welled with tears as she confessed her predicament. She explained that she was a wizard and desperately needed to join this raid, but her weakness in duels was causing her immense stress. Kaikeru listened, then told her he understood. He revealed that he was also a rear guard, and that many rear guards are poor at dueling, reassuring her that it was alright. He elaborated on the selection process, explaining that the organizer's goal is to find the most suitable members, not just the strongest duelists. He assured her they don't simply send all the losers home. As long as she could be paired with someone who helped showcase her abilities, she could still join even if she lost. The girl was taken aback, questioning if that was truly the case. Handing her a fresh plate of food, he advised her not to panic so much and to just focus on putting on a good show. He added a light-hearted warning not to spill any more food. Taking the plate, she thanked him, admitting his words had managed to calm her down a little. Kaikeru reflected on his own advice. While he had said those things to her, he knew that as a C-rank trapmaster, he practically had to win. They both agreed to do their best. Across the room, Kiryu and Jessica spotted Reize Agino and called out to her, expressing her delight that her friend was joining. Agino congratulated Jessica on organizing the event. She stands with another young woman, her gloved hands clasped tightly, a sign of her underlying nerves. The woman asks if she is scared, but Jessica Kiryuin confirms she came because it is the other's time to be in the spotlight. Reacting with a slight blush, she bristles at being treated like a child. She declares that once the current affair is over and her father leaves the company to her, they will finally be equals. The branch chief simply agrees. The branch chief then turns her attention to Reise Agino, stating that she accepted Kaikeru based on Agino's recommendation. However, she voices her doubts, questioning if it was truly wise to have a trapmaster join their ranks. Agino insists she just explained his value, but the branch chief playfully dismisses her, retorting that Agino is still just a kid and doesn't yet understand Kaikeru's true worth. Meanwhile, in the dueling arena, Kajura Kaikeru is declared the winner. He stands over his defeated opponent, internally lamenting that he had to resort to using his arrow symbol and hoping no one noticed his discreet use of the skill. From the stands, a man identified as Raid Commander Hayuru watches intently, wondering about the strange attack he just witnessed. Beside him, a young girl with her hair in buns complains about someone losing to a mere trapmaster, before grudgingly admitting that Kaikeru isn't half bad. His victory secured, Kaikeru is met by an ecstatic Tsukasa, who cheers for her Oni-chan and praises his easy win. He calmly accepts her compliments, then points out that Ryui's match is next, prompting Tsukasa to suggest they go cheer for her. They find a spot to watch as the next matchup is announced, a wizard versus a paladin. Tsukasa remarks that she's never seen Agino fight, and Kaikeru admits he hasn't seen much either. His eyes widen in recognition as he sees Agino's opponent step into the arena. As the duel begins, Kaikeru realizes with a start that the wizard facing Agino is the same anxious girl he had encouraged the day before. Beside him, Tsukasa enthusiastically cheers for Agino to put on a good show. The wizard raises her hands, conjuring a bow made of pure, shimmering light. Agino looks on, taken aback, noting the absence of an arrow. Undeterred, the wizard lifts the ethereal weapon, her concentration absolute as she prepares to fire. She unleashes a blindingly powerful blast of energy from her light bow. From the stands, Tsukasa gasps at the incredible power, questioning if even Agino can block such an attack. Kaikeru, watching intently, quietly reflects that his earlier advice may have been unnecessary. The paladin stands her ground as the attack barrels towards her. She considers that she could likely dodge it, but resolves to face it head-on to demonstrate the dignity of a tank. The blast impacts her shield, erupting in a massive cloud of dust and light. Tsukasa shouts from the sidelines, amazed that Agino blocked it and exclaiming how tough she is. As the smoke clears, Agino realizes the real match begins now that her opponent is within reach. The wizard charges forward, determined to get past the shield, but a referee suddenly intervenes, shouting for the match to stop. The duel is abruptly halted. Kaikeru remarks on how amazing it was that the fight was decided so quickly. Tsukasa agrees, adding that it could have turned nasty, but both combatants have already shown more than enough skill to pass. Sometime later, in a locker room area, Kaikeru tells Tsukasa that he is leaving first. She simply says okay as he walks away. He walks down a hallway alone when a voice calls out to him. It is the young wizard from the duel. She approaches him, a bit flustered, and thanks him. She explains that because of the advice he gave her, she wasn't nervous during the fight. He replies, admitting he had no idea she was so strong. He tells her it's good she was able to show her power, as having such a powerful ally in a dungeon is reassuring. She looks up at him, a small, gentle smile forming as she formally introduces herself for the first time. I am Yuzui Tru. She offers Kaikeru something as thanks for his help, but he turns her down, insisting he didn't do it for a reward. His attention is then drawn to her bag, which is completely covered in merchandise, buttons, keychains, and charms, all depicting the same smiling, light-haired girl. He looks on puzzled. A jolt of recognition hits him, and he blurts out the name, Yuko. Yuzui Turu flinches at the sound of it. He asks her if that's what she just said. She becomes agitated, insisting that he cannot call Ashitori-san by that name. She explains that Yuko is a special nickname reserved only for her close friends. Pulling out a magazine titled Special Holy Sword Report, she points out the rule on page 57. While she admits it's impressive he even knows the nickname, she firmly states that as fans, they must respect the wishes of their idols. With a fiercely determined expression, she repeats her plea. The intensity of her words finally clicks for Kaikeru. He realizes with astonishment that she is a devoted fan of Yuko, a fan of a holy sword wielder. At school, Yuzui Turu confronts Kajura Kaikeru, holding a magazine featuring Ashitari Yukiko. She insists that he cannot call Ashitori-san by the familiar nickname Yuko. He explains that it's a nickname he gave her himself, so it has become a habit. He realizes with a start that this girl must be a fan of Yukiko's. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by Yukiko herself, who runs up cheerfully, apologizing to Kaikeru for the wait. Kaikeru is stunned, while Yuzui stares in disbelief, asking if he really did know her. She watches them together, a bead of sweat forming on her temple as she quietly utters his name. Her quiet utterance draws the attention of both Kaikeru and Yukiko, who turn to look at her. She speaks directly to Kaikeru, stating that she had heard the nickname Yuko was given to Ashitari by a childhood friend. She continues, explaining that she dismissed it as a rumor because it was never mentioned in interviews, only spoken of by fans who had met Yukiko in person. Her expression shifts to one of serious revelation. She identifies Kaikeru as the legendary figure from the rumors, The phantom fourth member of Holy Sword. He recoils, squeezing his eyes shut in utter mortification and begging her not to give him such an embarrassing title. Her investigation, however, is cut short as her face contorts in shock. She shouts a single, panicked word, expel. Her mind races, unable to comprehend the news. She stammers out loud, questioning if this could possibly be a scandal involving the group Holy Sword. As she continues to mutter about the potential scandal, Ashitari Yukiko arrives, apologizing for the wait. A dark-haired girl traveling with them advises Yuzui not to get so depressed all of a sudden. Kaikeru's expression darkens. He knows he cannot deny being expelled. Yuzui misinterprets his demeanor, wondering if he's trying to win Yukiko over, but her companion bluntly corrects her, stating that he is being exposed. He turns to Yuzui directly, explaining that he would prefer to avoid any trouble for now, as he doesn't wish to cause any more problems for Holy Sword. She quietly accepts his reasoning. He continues, explaining that if people discovered he was a former member, he would never be left alone. He then asks her to please keep this information quiet. She agrees without hesitation, promising not to tell anyone. A look of gratitude crosses Kaikeru's face as he thanks her. With the matter settled, the dark-haired girl speaks up, asking Kaikeru if he has a picture with Ashitari. She remarks that Yukiko seems to be a pretty strong person. The question alone sends Yuzui into a flustered panic, her face flushing bright red. Her companion watches her reaction with a knowing, subtle smile. Sometime later, the group is seated in a lounge. Yuzui is still overwhelmed, thinking how rare it is to meet Ashitari in person. Kaikeru reflects on the rumors about Holy Sword having some crazy fans, finding the direct encounter strange. The dark-haired girl looks around their new surroundings, remarking that it's her first time sleeping in a hotel near a dungeon. Yukiko overhears and wonders aloud if it must have cost a lot of money. The dark-haired girl listens as Yukiko explains their accommodations. The hotel, she reveals, is owned by the Kiryuin family, and these preparations are part of Yuzui Teru's studies. The girl expresses her surprise, remarking that it sounds like a special education for the gifted. As they sit together in the lounge, Kaikeru focuses on a device in his hands. Two men in dark, traditional-looking robes approach their table, their curiosity piqued. One of them asks what they are looking at, noting that it appears to be a picture of a girl. Leaning closer, the blonde-haired man's eyes widen. He asks if the image is of Holy Sword, causing Kaikeru to jolt and quickly hide the device from view. He receives a quiet warning from his dark-haired companion to stop before he is exposed again. Kaikeru turns to Yuzui, apologizing and thanking her for the rescue. Meanwhile, the robed men are distracted by Yukiko's bag, with the blonde exclaiming over its impressive capacity. Yukiko smiles, stating that this is what she lives for. The dark-haired girl then turns her full attention to Yuzui, cheerfully insisting she join their conversation instead of only speaking with Kaikeru. She guesses that they must all be around the same age. Following her lead, Yukiko asks Yuzui if she typically works alone. Yuzui confirms this, explaining that although she lives far away, she makes a point to join large-scale raids like the current one. Her dedication impresses the dark-haired girl, who notes that Yuzui seems very serious about her work. Kaikeru listens with a somber expression, aware of the significant dangers that await them in the high-rank areas they are about to enter. Yuzui then reveals her true purpose for being there. She states with unwavering resolve that there is a specific dungeon drop she must obtain, no matter what, the blue elixir. The name hangs in the air, catching both Kaikeru and Yukiko by surprise. He immediately recognizes its significance, murmuring that it is an exceptionally rare drop. The dark-haired girl asks just how rare it is, prompting a shocked exclamation from Yukiko, who reveals that the lowest price it has ever sold for on the market was a staggering 1 billion yen. The implication of her quest dawns on Kaikeru. As he processes this, Yukiko gives voice to their shared thought, her expression softening as she asks Yuzui if she is seeking the elixir for someone close to her who is ill. She begins to speak, her voice quiet as she clutches a container in her lap, revealing that the person she is trying to save is her mother. Her explanation continues, detailing the severity of the situation. Her mother can no longer even walk, and the doctors have told her there is nothing more that can be done with this world's technology. The reason for her desperation becomes clear to Kajura. He now understands why she was so determined to join this raid. With tears welling in her eyes, she thanks him for his understanding. Having shared her burden, she turns and walks down the hallway, bidding them a quiet goodnight. As she departs, Kajura remarks to Yukiko that even in a place like this, she is always saving people. Flustered, Yukiko declares that it is what she lives for. The group reaffirms their goal for the next day, agreeing to do their best. As the others raise their fists in solidarity, Kajura watches them, feeling a renewed determination not to fall behind. The next day, a massive force of adventurers assembles. A man in ornate robes and glasses takes command, his voice booming as he announces that the raid battle begins now. Among the determined faces are Kajura and his party, poised for the fight. Within the ranks, a young witch nervously grips her staff, her expression a mixture of apprehension and resolve. The battle erupts. An elf-like warrior shouts orders to set up a trap, directing monsters toward Kajura, who leaps into action and cleanly slices through a small, winged creature, earning a cry of approval from comrade. Amidst the coordinated chaos, the raid leader cautions everyone to maintain formation. A priest offers healing to those nearby, while another adventurer observes the smooth progress, remarking that this raid might turn out to be an easy one. As he walks, Kajura Kaikeru internally reviews his own abilities. Statue of Heaven's Fall, Murder Mebius, and Whispering Maris. The names strike him as strange. His thoughts are interrupted by Ashitari Yukiko's cheerful voice, calling him Oni-ai-chan and declaring him the best. Beside her, the dark-haired companion eagerly states she wants to hurry up and fight too. The group presses onward, their current strategy simple. The advance party is to handle all threats until they reach the boss's room. Suddenly, a voice calls out to Kaikeru. Ashitari Yukiko realizes this means their group will be responsible for the final battle and urges everyone to prepare. Kaikeru quietly agrees. The raid leader approaches him, advising him to slow down and conserve his strength for the boss. He bluntly asks if Kaikeru is strong, but Kaikeru deflects, stating he isn't in the main group. The leader dismisses this, telling him not to play dumb. He continues, acknowledging that adventurers always hide their trump cards. He reveals that he would have placed Kaikeru in the main group if he hadn't registered as a trapmaster, but still intends to make good use of him. Seeing an opening, Kaikeru asks if he can make a request, since he is valued so highly. He then specifies his request. When they enter the boss's room, the main group's tanks must be deployed to the front line first. The raid leader questions this, stating that standard procedure is for the advance party to take the first hits to assess the threat. As they walk toward a massive pyramid structure, Kaikeru explains his reasoning. Normally, dungeons have a consistent theme, such as being filled with wolf monsters or fire monsters. He gestures to the vast, empty space around them, noting that this dungeon's lack of a theme makes it impossible to predict what kind of boss they will face. He fears it could be something terrible. The raid leader considers this. He concedes that Kaikeru has a point, but then glances toward his party members and states that he cannot grant the request. The reason? The young lady is here. He explains that if there's something to worry about, it's all the more reason to keep the main tanks in reserve. Kaikeru processes this, concluding that the leader is prioritizing the safety of the employer. He supposes it makes sense. Despite his outward acceptance, he can't shake the feeling that he's overlooking something crucial. His thoughts are cut short when a scout cries out, announcing that they have found the boss's room. The announcement draws everyone's attention to a grand doorway. Beyond it lies a colossal chamber, its ceiling supported by towering, bone-white pillars that arch like the ribcage of some gargantuan beast. As they venture deeper into the unsettling hall, the dark-haired companion remarks to Kaikeru how scary the place is, noting that it's not the kind of area one would explore alone. Ashitari Yukiko agrees, cautioning everyone to be careful since they don't know where the boss is. Her warning proves timely, as a massive, white creature with multiple sharp pincers suddenly descends from the cavern ceiling. Kaikeru looks up in alarm as another party member spots it, shouting for the others to get into formation. The creature lunges without hesitation, its pincer aimed directly at the party's main tank. Seeing the immediate danger, Kaikeru screams for the man to dodge. His warning comes too late. The tank braces himself, but the pincer slams into his shield with devastating force, the metal groaning and buckling under the immense pressure. The sheer power of the initial blow sends a wave of shock through the raid party. The witch adventurer stares, her eyes wide with disbelief and fear at the unexpected ferocity of their foe. A sudden, chilling realization strikes Kajura Kaikeru. He had misjudged the nature of their foes. The Whispering Maris, the Murder Mebius, the Statue of Heaven's Fall. He finally understood they were all monsters defined by one trait: overwhelming attack power. He grits his teeth, frustrated at his own oversight. His realization comes too late. The cavern is a whirlwind of chaos as the adventurers are overwhelmed. In the foreground, the young witch adventurer stares in wide-eyed shock, a fresh scratch marking her cheek as the battle rages around her. That shock curdles into horror as one of the party's main defenders is struck down. Screams echo through the chamber. The raid leader cries out that the man is dead, his voice filled with disbelief as others recoil in terror. His gaze darts towards their escape route, only to find it sealed. A massive, grotesque creature has materialized from a viscous puddle, its gelatinous form solidifying to block the exit completely. Amid the rising panic, Reise Agino shouts Kaikeru's name. Ignoring the cries to fall back, he turns to the armored knight beside him and gives a sharp command. Step forward. He then addresses the raid leader, who questions his strategy. Kaikeru explains that their foe is a death mantis, a creature that instinctively attacks nearby opponents with its blades. He lays out their grim reality. The mantis has spawned children, and if no one engages the main body, it will attack the scattered party at random. With one of their 2 tanks dead, they lack the defenses to protect everyone. The original plan to have 2 tanks occupy its sickles is now impossible. Inaction will mean mass casualties. Taking command, he declares his intention to handle one side of the creature himself. As he speaks, a brilliant shield of light, emblazoned with a star, materializes around his left arm. He turns to the armored knight, warning her that the mantis possesses incredible attack power. He cannot guarantee her shield will withstand the blows. Despite the immense danger, he asks if she will come with him anyway. Her expression is firm as she agrees, stating that she just needs to follow his lead. As Kaikeru acknowledges her resolve, the witch adventurer lets out a desperate cry of "No!" Her her face streaked with tears of terror. She desperately grabs the armored knight, pleading with her not to go, warning that she will die too. The knight looks back with calm resolve, telling the tearful witch that there are times when a lady must act. She then turns and sprints towards the front line, leaving the witch staring in stunned silence. Her arrival bolsters the defense as Kaikeru slams his shield into the ground, projecting a formidable magical barrier and roaring a challenge to the death mantis. Come at me. The monster responds instantly, its massive scythe-like limb crashing down upon the shield with devastating force, sending sparks and debris flying. The shield holds. Kaikeru grits his teeth, realizing the creature's attack power is the highest among A-rank bosses, and that he is done for if he fails to redirect a single strike. The armored knight marvels at its strength, while the other adventurers watch in awe. On the back lines, the party mobilizes. The mustached adventurer calls for anyone who can attack from a distance to provide support, while the raid leader instructs the healer priest to focus entirely on keeping the tanks alive. Despite their efforts, the relentless assault takes its toll. Kaikeru groans under the strain, and the witch adventurer watches with growing dread, concluding that it's no good. They won't be able to last like this. It is then that Tsukasa swings into the fray. Seeing the dire situation, she resolves to at least distract the monster for a single attack to give the tanks a moment's reprieve. Her attack connects, earning a cry of "well done" from the mustached adventurer, but the death mantis immediately retaliates, swatting her out of the air. Kaikeru can only gasp in shock as she is sent tumbling away. She is sent tumbling through the air from the force of the blow, as the anxious wizard, Yuzui, watches in horror, letting out a cry of shock. Reacting instantly, Yuzui leaps forward and catches Tsukasa, breaking her fall. In the background, one of the other raid members curses at Tsukasa's reckless maneuver. Once they're stable, Yuzui asks if Tsukasa is alright, who in turn thanks her for the save. Yuzui's focus, however, is on Tsukasa's abilities. She questions how a wizard could use an assassin-type skill like stealth. She wonders if it's because Tsukasa looks up to Yukiko. As they speak, Kaikeru's voice cuts through the din of battle, shouting for Yuzui. He shouts out a desperate plan, declaring that he will stop the monster's arms for a moment. He needs someone to use that opening to get close and fire a spell from inside its shell. The mustached adventurer immediately understands the implication, questioning if Kaikeru really wants Yuzui to use stealth to get that close. He warns that she'll be in grave danger if she makes a single mistake. Despite the warning, Yuzui's expression firms with resolve. She states her trust in Kajura, believing him to be a good person. With her faith placed in him, she activates her stealth skill and vanishes. As she fades from view, Tsukasa watches her go and announces that she will help as well, preparing to provide support. Back on the front line, Kaikeru and the armored knight strain against the monster's assault. He yells for his companion not to let go, his thoughts fixed on Yuzui's safety, hoping she doesn't die. He then unleashes his own power, casting a spell called Arrow, symbol X4. A glowing magic circle forms before them as Yuzui sprints towards the target, spurred on by Tsukasa shouting her name. The spell activates, and 4 massive lances of light slam down from above, pinning the death mantis's limbs and creating the opening for Yuzui's attack. She sprinted across the fractured ground, closing in on the monster's immobilized arm. Seeing her advance, the raid leader exclaimed that they had succeeded. A wave of renewed hope washed over the party. They believed they could win, needing only to crush the other arm. But that hope was instantly shattered by the sound of splintering metal. The armored knight's shield, which had been holding back the monster's other limb, began to fracture under the immense pressure. In a shower of fragments, the shield gave way completely. With its limb freed, the death mantis brought its massive blade arm crashing down. The nearby adventurers cried out in alarm as Tsukasa screamed for Reize. He was already straining, sweat pouring down his face as he confessed internally that he was at his limit. Tsukasa's desperate cry for her brother echoed as the situation grew dire. Seeing her brother falter, she charged forward, sword in hand, determined to intervene. But before she could reach them, another figure moved to intercept the blow. The witch adventurer planted herself firmly between the descending blade and the vulnerable armored knight. The armored knight cried out her companion's name, Jessica. With tears streaming from her eyes, Jessica declared with fierce resolve that she would not let anyone else die. She let out a powerful cry, thrusting her staff forward and unleashing a torrent of magical energy to meet the monster's attack head-on. As the massive death mantis deflects an attack, the adventurers below see their opening. One of them shouts that the creature's deflection is their chance to strike. Seizing the moment, Tsukasa Tsukage's thrust her hand forward, casting a spell. From the ground erupt dark, sharp tendrils, a shadow stitch meant to bind the monster in place. The binding will only hold for a moment. The witch adventurer, Jessica, knows this as she gathers her power. With her mana reserves running low, she grits her teeth, praying this final, desperate attack will be enough as she aims her staff. She unleashes her spell, and a colossal pillar of destructive energy erupts from the ground, engulfing the ensnared death mantis completely. The shockwave is immense, blasting several of the adventurers, including Tsukasa, into the air. The attack finds its mark. The raid leader roars in triumph, announcing that both of the monster's massive, scythe-like arms have been severed and are falling away from its body. Seeing the creature disarmed, The rest of the party surges forward. They shout that all that's left is to beat it down, calling for a relentless barrage of fire magic. Amid the chaos, Kaikeru rushes to the armored knight's side as she kneels on the ground. He asks if she is alright, and she confirms that she is. As they speak, Tsukasa is seen falling through the air, calling out for Reise. He leans closer to her, his face a mask of pure relief. He exhales, expressing how thankful he is that she is unharmed. While Reise Agino looks on with a conflicted expression, the armored knight turns her attention to the witch who saved them. She looks at Jessica and offers a sincere thank you. The aftermath of the assault is clear. The head of the death mantis lies still, its single eye lifeless, its carapace dripping with the residue of the magical onslaught. The adventurers stand before the colossal, unmoving legs of the beast. The raid leader stares, bewildered, asking what that was. Another party member voices the group's uncertainty, wondering if they truly managed to defeat it. The momentary relief shatters. Before the raid party, the smaller mantis creatures swarm the corpse of their parent, tearing into it with a sickening fervor. Tsukasa cries out in horror, realizing they're eating their own kind, their parent. Kaikeru can only stare, aghast at the grotesque scene. As they feed, the creatures begin to swell and transform, rapidly growing into adult forms. The raid leader, seeing this horrifying metamorphosis, shouts for his comrades not to falter. He insists they're not growing that fast, and that they can be defeated before reaching full maturity. Heeding his command, the mustached adventurer bellows a war cry, rallying the others. The vanguard surges forward, charging headlong into the swarm of newly matured mantis monsters. Watching the charge from a distance, the armored knight's expression hardens with resolve. She observes that they can no longer afford to stay back. She believes that if they can land just one more powerful blow, it could be enough. Amidst the chaos of the renewed battle, Kaikeru and the witch adventurer stand ready, their faces grim as they prepare to rejoin the fray. He turns to Reise Agino, who tells him she is completely spent, but will give him what little she has left for one final combined attack. The anxious student wizard beside her agrees, offering her own depleted reserves as well. Kaikeru accepts their power, telling them he is counting on them. Empowered, he dashes forward into the fray. He knows his defensive arrow symbol ability is gone, leaving him vulnerable, but his focus is absolute. With fierce determination, he vows that he will not miss. Leaping high into the air, Kaikeru channels all the gathered energy into his weapon, bringing it down in a powerful, arcing slash aimed directly at one of the mantis beasts. In the immediate aftermath, the battlefield falls strangely silent. A lone adventurer looks around in a panic, his weapon at the ready, shouting to his comrades, asking where the rest of the monsters have gone. The answer reveals itself in a blinding flash. A massive explosion of pure white light erupts from the center of the cavern, engulfing everything and sending the scattered adventurers flying from the sheer force of the blast. Out of the blinding light, the battered adventurers find themselves before a familiar sight. One of them, weary but relieved, identifies it, the gate leading out of the dungeon. The realization triggers an eruption of joy. Kaikeru and the others cry out in triumph, celebrating their hard-won survival against impossible odds. They have done it, but the relief is mingled with profound exhaustion. The armored knight, the anxious student wizard, and Tsukasa all show the toll of the battle on their faces and bodies, breathing heavily but alive. Their weary group trudges away from the dungeon's maw, leaving the site of their desperate struggle behind. Under the vast, starry sky, one of them murmurs in disbelief, confirming they have made it back alive. The journey back, however, is not one of triumph. The celebration has faded, replaced by a solemn procession. The surviving members of the raid party quietly escort the shrouded body of a fallen comrade. During the somber march, the healer priest approaches Kaikeru. He expresses that it was a good thing Kaikeru was with them, as it allows them to carry their fallen friend back and return him to his family. He responds with a heavy gaze, confessing that he was the only one who knew about that particular monster. The priest acknowledges that providing a proper return is the last thing they can offer a fellow adventurer. The priest shares his own burden of regret, wondering if things would have been different had he noticed the dungeon's theme sooner, or if he still had the courage he once wielded with his holy sword. Kaikeru quietly admits he doesn't know, for sure, if it would have changed anything. He tries to offer some measure of comfort, stating that everyone did what they could in that moment. To change what happened, he says, would require the power of a god. Still, Kaikeru remains silent, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Yet, even as he grapples with his perceived failure, elsewhere, a different kind of battle is being waged. Tsukasa, Hagane Ko, and Ashitori Yukiko stand ready against a host of bizarre, otherworldly creatures. The thought hangs in the air that any one of them possessed the power to handle such a threat on their own. Elsewhere, Kajura Kaikeru is consumed by self-reproach. His thoughts echo his feelings of inadequacy, believing he is still weak and that he could have let something unforgivable happen to his comrades. His troubled thoughts are interrupted by a sudden presence. He wonders what he must do to catch up to the others as his gaze falls upon a folded paper object floating in the air, which leads his eyes to a figure standing beneath a tree. The woman, Itomi Kakuri, turns to face him. She holds the paper object in her hand, a gentle smile on her face as she looks at him. He utters her name in surprise, Kukuri, but she quickly brings a finger to her lips, silencing him with a quiet gesture. Now standing before him, she observes his troubled expression. She notes that he seems to be having trouble with something and suggests they find a place to talk. As they walk, she gets straight to the point, asking directly if somebody died. She then adds with a somber look that no matter how often she experiences it, it's something she can never get used to. He doesn't deny it, confirming her suspicion. He admits that he doesn't feel well either. His gaze drifts as he recalls the past, revealing that he hasn't seen a certain person since that day. His mind flashes back to a memory of standing with the Gainko. Kukuri shifts the conversation, bringing up a past grievance. She apologizes for leaving without a proper goodbye, but then smiles wryly, admitting that she is still quite mad about that. She continues her thought, offering a theory for his actions. She suggests that perhaps he had the wrong idea about her, or maybe the situation was simply too awkward for him to handle at the time. Kaikeru remains silent, contemplating her words. Her expression is serious as she faces him. She states that she doesn't have much time and intends to be direct. She then delivers a startling revelation. This winter, the first attempt on the Origin Gate will be made. The news visibly shocks Kaikeru. He stares, processing the gravity of her words, and asks with disbelief if they're truly going through with it. Kukuri looks down, her silence a somber confirmation. She elaborates on the plan, explaining that a selection test will be held in the fall to determine which parties will follow them. To even be considered, she states, his party must be arranged. Her gaze is unwavering as she warns him that if he wants to try, he needs to hurry. He meets her stare, his expression hardening with resolve. Having delivered her message, she turns to depart, explaining that she snuck out to meet him and must get back before she is found. He calls out her name, try to stop her. He demands to know why she would tell him all of this. She pauses, her back still mostly to him, and replies with an enigmatic question of her own. I wonder why. He reflects on his own conflicted feelings, admitting that he wants her to stay safe, or at least he thought he did. A gentle smile touches her lips as she reveals her true motivation. She was just incredibly happy when she heard he was working so hard. Her simple honesty breaks through his turmoil. He calls out to her again, his voice filled with regret as he apologizes for not meeting her, confessing that he was scared to face her. His vulnerable confession was met with a gentle but firm gaze from Itomi Kukuri. She declared that she, too, would not run away any longer. Her words seemed to ignite a fire within him. He shouted his promise to become stronger, strong enough to stand by her side. He roared the promise one last time, his face a mask of fierce determination. In response, a soft, accepting smile graced her lips. As she turned to depart, she glanced back, noting that he seemed to have cheered up a little. She expressed her gladness at seeing him and her anticipation for the future. She left him standing alone in the moonlit forest, his expression now one of solid resolve, the earlier fear replaced by a newfound purpose. But his solitary moment was being observed. From another place entirely, a hand reached down toward his shimmering reflection on a dark, watery surface as a voice murmured its approval. The observer, a woman with impossibly long hair and intricate patterns in her eyes, smiled faintly. She mused that she likes children who don't know when to give up. Her gaze remained fixed on the boy's image in the water below as she wondered aloud if it was about time for the next one, her words hinting at a larger, unseen plan. After the grueling raid, Kajura Kaikeru finally recovers, having rested for 2 full days. In a hotel room, he's greeted by the branch chief, Itomi Kukuri, and Toganatsu. The branch chief asks if he's feeling better, and he confirms he is, mostly thanks to her. He muses aloud why being healed by magic is so tiring, and Kukuri remarks that it's a common complaint among adventurers. He then observes that the branch chief must have also been very tired after the expedition. Sipping her tea, she claims with a composed smile that she won't show weakness so easily. Kaikeru internally scoffs at her stoicism, thinking to himself that she is lying. Her expression turns serious as she addresses him by his family name, Rei-Zei. She tells him that once things have calmed down, there is something she would like to discuss with him. He meets her gaze, listening intently. Nearby, Toganatsu mentions to the branch chief that she heard this was the first time Kaikeru had experienced a teammate's death, which the branch chief agrees is worrying. Overhearing them, Kaikeru speaks up, stating his desire for Tsukigase to join them as well, though he is unsure if she has woken up yet. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out Oni-ai-chan as his sister arrives. As she runs to him, Toganatsu remarks that while loss is unavoidable in their line of work, it's still hard. His sister asks how he is feeling, and he reassures her that he's fine now. She urges him not to push himself, confiding that when she first experienced such a loss, she was bedridden for days. She offers a gentle smile, acknowledging that their situations might not be comparable. She simply says thanks and insists that she is truly fine now. Later, Kaikeru, his sister, and the branch chief sit together at a cafe. A thoughtful expression crosses his sister's face as she brings up a legendary location, the Origin Gate. The branch chief explains that for a very long time, no one had even considered entering the gate. That all changed, she continues, with the appearance of the incredible top party known as Holy Sword. Kaikeru's sister expresses her astonishment, admitting she thought such things only existed in textbooks. As he listens, Kaikeru's gaze becomes resolute. He declares his ultimate ambition, to be by the side of Holy Sword, no matter what, when they finally challenge their goal. His sister looks at him with gentle encouragement. She tells him not to look so sad, reminding him that he can fulfill that wish if they get selected to fight alongside them. He looks back at her, his expression softening slightly at her words. He sits at a table with his sister and the branch chief, who lays out the gravity of their situation. If their party, Vestige, is selected as a participant, their destination will not just be Tokyo, but the legendary Origin Gate itself. She continues, her tone serious, warning them that this will be more dangerous than anything they have ever faced. Her gaze shifts to Kaikeru, reminding him that their last expedition was a harsh lesson in the life-or-death stakes of delving into dungeons. She presses him to think carefully. Will he continue down this perilous path, or will he choose to look elsewhere? She concludes her ultimatum, stating that although the party was just formed, their answer right here and now will determine if Vestige is to be disbanded. Before anyone else can speak, his sister's voice cuts through the tension with a simple, firm declaration. I'll go. His sister looks at him, her expression unwavering. She reminds him it was a promise they made, that the two of them would see much of the world of adventurers together. The branch chief, seeing their resolve, adds her own. She states with conviction that she will not back down at a time like this. She elaborates that this mission could go down in history, presenting an extraordinary opportunity for the Reize family. Her attention returns to Kaikeru. She confides that she saw something in him when she chose to acquire him, and she believes it is a gamble worth taking. With a determined look, she invites him to take this risk together with her. His expression hardens, his eyes filled with a newfound resolve as he processes their words and their faith in him. He looks at them both, acknowledging the danger he himself had pointed out. But with absolute certainty, he makes a solemn promise. He will not let anyone die. The branch chief, her expression serious, begins to outline their next steps. Tsukasa watches her, a gentle smile on her face. Seated around a table, she listens as Kaikeru confirms their immediate objective, to become an A-rank party. He affirms this, explaining that the first step requires him, as the party leader, to achieve the rank of a rank adventurer on his own. Tsukasa, looking up from some documents, asks for the specifics of how a party achieves that rank. The branch chief elaborates, stating that beyond his personal rank, the party needs a proven record of clearing a high-rank dungeon. This gives him pause, and he questions whether such a feat is even possible with just the three of them. He considers their recent success, noting that clearing a dungeon with a full raid is a different matter entirely. He admits that accomplishing this with their small group will be difficult. Tapping a pen against a party registration form, he analyzes their current composition. To form a more orthodox party, he concludes they would need at least 1 or 2 more members. He leans forward, specifying their most critical need, a dedicated rearguard. The branch chief adds a crucial condition. Given their ultimate goal of entering the Origin Gate, she insists that they cannot recruit just anyone. The new member must be exceptional. A moment of quiet contemplation settles over the table as the three of them consider the weight of this requirement. The silence is broken when Tsukasa mentions that a particular girl comes to mind. Kaikeru looks up, a flicker of surprise on his face, and agrees that it's a coincidence, as he was thinking of someone too. The branch chief, sensing their shared thought, proposes they all say the name together. He and his companions spoke the name that was on all their minds in unison. The name, Yuzui, hung in the air between Kaikeru, Tsukasa, and the branch chief. Elsewhere, the very subject of their discussion, Yuzui Turu, sat by herself, her gaze fixed upon a dark, rectangular card in her hand. She was on the phone, speaking with Hayudu. She thanked him for the list of dropped items he had sent, confirming she had read it all. A note of disappointment entered her voice as she reported that, once again, there was no blue elixir. He, in turn, thanked her for the invitation, explaining that they were always glad to have strong adventurers for major events, as such opportunities were rare. He expressed his hope that she would contact him again. Yuzui listened, a quiet, escaping her lips as she considered his words. Before ending the call, he made a request. The party members of Vestige wanted to meet with her. He asked for permission to give them her address. She agreed without hesitation, repeating the name Vestige thoughtfully. She authorized him to give them her phone number, and, if the matter was urgent, the name of the hospital where she was staying. After the call, a man approached, whom she greeted as uncle. As she put her phone away, she couldn't help but wonder what this party could possibly want with her. He greeted her in return, and she immediately asked about her mother's condition. Her uncle relayed that her mother had just fallen asleep and had been feeling quite well that day. Yuzui absorbed the news, a quiet "I see," her only response. They stood together for a moment, looking into the quiet hospital room at the occupied bed. Yuzui turned to her uncle, her voice soft as she pleaded with him to continue looking after her. His expression grew somber as he asked if she was heading back out again. She confirmed that she was, stating her need to find another high-rank dungeon as soon as possible. He fell silent, his face etched with worry. He looks down at his niece, Turu, with a serious expression, telling her that he thinks it's time for her to quit being an adventurer. He continues, revealing that he heard someone died on her mission again. He expresses his regret, apologizing for putting her in harm's way for the sake of his own younger sister. He insists that she shouldn't have to suffer like this. Standing outside a building, he tells her that at her age, she should be spending time with friends, not undertaking such dangerous work. His word echoes in her mind. Suffer. Her expression shifts to one of distress as she looks up at her uncle, beginning to speak. But instead of finishing her sentence, she abruptly turns and sprints away, shouting an apology and insisting that she has to go. Her uncle cries out for her to wait, caught by surprise. She runs towards a waiting black car, desperately pleading to be let inside. The car door slams shut, and the vehicle speeds off down the road, leaving her uncle shouting futilely in its wake. Safely inside the vehicle with Tsukasa, Natsume, and Kakuri, Yujui is asked if she is certain about her decision. She thanks them for their help and reassures them that her uncle is a good person who will eventually understand, promising to speak with him properly later. The group arrives at a quiet, open area, settling onto benches to continue their conversation. She looks out over the water towards the distant city, identifying the location as the Origin Gate. Her hands tremble slightly as she clutches a small, foil-wrapped rice ball. Hikaru speaks gently, acknowledging that it's a lot for her to take in and advising her to take her time thinking about it. She remains silent, her gaze lowered. Her focus returns to the food in her hands. She quietly explains that the onigiri was a gift from her father. She continues, her voice filled with admiration, calling her dad amazing. She recounts how he loves her mom, takes care of all the housework, and works long hours every day. A quiet moment passes as she stands by the railing, her back to Hikaru, who watches her thoughtfully. He breaks the silence, stating that he doesn't consider diving into dungeons and the life of an adventurer to be some kind of misfortune. Turning to face him, she reveals her true motivation. She believes this path might save her mother, and she would gladly accept any help to achieve that goal. Addressing him formally as Kajura-san. With determination hardening her expression, she makes a direct and earnest request to be allowed to join the group known as Vestige. He clarifies her words, asking if she means to join them at the Origin Gate within the dungeons of Tokyo in her search for an elixir. She looks out at the horizon, explaining her belief that every single adventurer is loved by someone, and they all carry those feelings with them into battle. Hikaru listens intently, his expression serious. He holds the cup, his thoughts turning to the weight of his new role. He understands he must live up to this responsibility. His gaze hardens with resolve. Seeing his decision, a gentle smile spreads across Yujui Turu's face. She reaffirms their shared goal to find the blue elixir and promises him that he will make it back to his mother, safe and sound. With a deep, respectful bow, she formalizes her commitment. As Tsukasa and Kukuri watch, Kaikeru extends a hand, officially welcoming her and stating that he looks forward to working with her. Elsewhere, in a desolate, ruin-filled landscape, a stone effigy of a frog-like creature explodes into a shower of rubble. Standing amidst the debris is a young woman, her rapier still humming from the strike. She looks on with mild disappointment, remarking that it was a shame her opponent was too slow. She turns her attention from the dissolving remains of the creature to a document in her hand, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. The document is a notice for her A-rank license renewal. She groans in frustration, unable to believe it's already time for that again, and complaining about what a pain it is. She'll have to spar, and the association branch is so far away. As she walks through the ruins, she continues to grumble about her situation. She lives in the middle of nowhere, and on top of everything else, has to help her granny around the house. It's all so annoying. She stops, her expression set with determination and longing. All she truly wants, she declares, is to move to Tokyo already. At the entrance to the Adventurers Association, Toga Natsume, flanked by her companions Itomi Kakuri and Ashura Yukiko, makes a report. She announces that their party, Holy Sword, has returned from cleanup duty. Inside, Raid Commander Hayudu thanks them, noting their success in reducing the unmanaged monster area in northern Kanto. He wistfully remarks that if the monsters would just stay put, he might get to see his grandson. Nearby, Yukiko whispers to Kakuri that the president is unexpectedly an old geezer. His brief respite is broken as he and Natsume turn to a large window overlooking the city. A colossal, swirling vortex of dark energy hangs in the sky. Hayudu's expression hardens as he states that it is finally time to strike at the core of this origin gate. As the three women walk down a corridor, Kakuri quietly contemplates the gravity of his words, murmuring about the upcoming expedition to the origin gate. Natsume's face clouds over with a somber memory. Hayudu, still gazing at the ominous portal, confesses that he can never forget the day that thing first appeared over Tokyo. She turns to him, seeking clarity on a crucial point. She asks if it's true that clearing the origin gate will cause all the other gates to close as well. He admits frankly that he has no clue. It is only a hypothesis. However, he is certain that the mana leaking from the gate affects the surrounding space, and he is asking her to undertake a gamble with no guarantee of success. Hayudu thanks her for considering it and promises his full support. Natsume meets his gaze with unwavering resolve, stating that they will do anything as long as it helps people. Now seated at his desk, he informs her that they have just publicized the recruitment for support parties. He concedes, however, that he doesn't know how many will actually show up for such a perilous mission. Hearing this, Yukiko remarks that it doesn't bode well, calling the potential volunteers cowards. Kakuri, however, expresses quiet confidence, stating she is sure people will show up by fall. Natsume simply tells her not to worry. The car travels down a road bordered by guardrail, with a wide, open landscape on one side and a steep, wooded hill on the other. Inside, Kaikeru is at the wheel, thanking his passenger, Kokuri, for coming with him. She replies that no thanks are necessary, as she needed to renew her license regardless. He pulls the car into a parking space, admitting that it is a great help to have someone along who is familiar with the area. They now stand before their destination, the Hokuriku branch of the Adventurers Association. Kaikeru remarks that he has never been to this particular branch before. Inside, at a reception desk, Kokuri arranges her B-rank license renewal. The receptionist instructs her to proceed to the ability gauging room. As Kokuri steps away, the receptionist turns her attention to Kaikeru. He states his purpose directly. He would like to take the A-rank exam. The request leaves her momentarily speechless. She recovers and consults her terminal, noting that while he has reached the recommended level, his request is unprecedented. There has never been an A-rank trap master, and he wishes to skip a rank entirely. He calmly explains that his level is a result of the experience points gained from the recent raid. The receptionist then asks if he has ever used an arena for high-rank duels before, to which he confirms he has, several times. Accepting his qualifications, she directs him where to go and clarifies the condition for his advancement. To skip a rank, he will need to achieve 3 victories in a row. He takes the access card she provides, realizing the implication. Since entry to the training room is limited to once a day, this trial will take him at least 3 days to complete. He stood before the examination room, his thoughts consumed by the trial ahead, the A-rank exam. He considered the possibilities. His opponent would be either another candidate or a full-fledged A-ranker. Regardless, he steeled his resolve, deciding he would simply have to try. Meanwhile, in another waiting area, his opponent checked the matchup. She sighed, wanted to win quickly and go home. Her eyes fell upon the screen, which listed her opponent as Kajura Kaikeru. To her surprise, his class was listed as Trap Master. He, in turn, studied the information on his own opponent, Kazari Kyuko, a fencer. He understood this was the first major hurdle he had overcome. With only 5 S-rank adventurers in all of Japan, A-rankers were among the absolute elite. He identified her fencer class as a speed-focused vanguard. While confident in his ability to defend against her attacks, he knew that landing one of his own would be a significant challenge. With their preparations complete, the 2 combatants entered the arena, facing each other across the grid floor. An official voice echoed through the space, instructing the participants to get ready. She sized them up, her mind racing. She recalled fighting many trap masters in the lower ranks, but no matter how skilled they were, they never reached the A-rank exams. Ultimately, she dismissed the thought, deciding it didn't matter. Her strategy was simple. She just had to avoid his traps. As the signal to start blared, she wasted no time, lunging forward with incredible speed. In a blur of motion, she closed the distance, leaping through the air towards him. As she flew, Kaikeru was already in motion, his hand touching the ground to set a trap. She instantly recognized his tactic as a textbook maneuver, designed to force her into a direct fight on his terms. As their blades met, Kaikeru felt her strength, confirming she was as powerful as he'd feared. He taunted her, daring her to try and overpower him, while covertly setting another trap with his free hand. He held his position, his plan unfolding. On the floor between them, a trap materialized, a glowing arrow symbol, pointing directly at his opponent. He watches as his opponent, Kazari Kyuko, realizes his gambit, a trap set on his own body. She questions the strange tactic, wondering how he plans to avoid getting caught in his own snare. He remains silent, knowing he must continue to keep her off balance. He doesn't give her time to ponder, lunging forward with his blade extended as the trap on the ground flares to life, catching Kazari completely by surprise. She twists mid-air, her body contorting to evade both his blade and the erupting trap. With a grunt of effort, she lands, seemingly clear of the danger. Her expression hardens into a furious snarl. She roars at him, incensed by his tactics, warning him not to underestimate her. In a flash of motion, she pushes off the ground, narrowly avoiding the trap's full effect as it detonates. He watches the aftermath, his gaze fixed on her position. But his opponent is already moving, a slight graze on her cheek, the only evidence of the close call. She lands behind him, acknowledging how close the trap came to catching her. He can't hide his shock, realizing with disbelief that she managed to dodge the trap even after triggering it. A feat of speed he considered insane. He understands now that his current strategy is useless. There's no point in setting traps if she can simply evade them upon activation. Across the arena, Kazari comes to her own conclusion. The arrow trap is a problem, and she must find an angle of attack that keeps her out of its range. The 2 combatants face each other from a distance, the duel reaching a momentary stalemate as they recalibrate their strategies. He unleashes his trap from a distance, forcing Kazari Kyuko to react. She realizes his abilities aren't limited to close range, and swiftly draws a pair of pistols, recognizing them as just another form of weapon. He feels the overwhelming pressure of her counterattack but resolves to push through, knowing he cannot let the fight drag on. He combines an arrow symbol with a powerful slash, creating a new form of assault. From her position, Kazari observes that he has mixed his trap symbols. In response to his attack, she leaps high into the air, effortlessly dodging the barrage of energy. Kaikeru watches in disbelief, stunned by her incredible speed and observational skill, questioning how a trap master can possess such agility. He gives her no time to recover from her aerial evasion. While she is still airborne, he unleashes another combination attack, this time infusing an arrow symbol with flame. The fiery projectile forces her to adjust her strategy mid-air. She realizes he can create projectiles by combining his arrow symbol with other traps, forcing her to switch mindsets. She is no longer fighting a simple trapper, but a wizard. This is a familiar challenge, however, as she has fought more wizards than she can count. As she lands, a new trap springs from the ground, a forest of blades erupting around her. But her focus is already elsewhere. She has anticipated his next move, and Kaikeru looks up in alarm, realizing she's now directly above him. She dives down, rapier first, pressing her advantage and forcing him onto the defensive. He desperately parries the flurry of strikes, realizing he needs to use another arrow symbol to create some distance. Her expression hardens with grim determination. She will not give him the opening he needs. She presses her relentless assault, her speed and power finally overwhelming his defenses. He grunts in pain as her blade breaks through his guard. He staggers back, acknowledging that it has been a long time since an opponent has pressured him so intensely in close quarters. He realizes that her speed, power, and stamina all surpass his own. Standing over him, Kazari declares that this is the end for him and calmly tells him to give up. Instead of surrendering, Kaikeru's face hardens with resolve. He grits his teeth, a silent apology forming in his mind. He cannot give up now. He must survive this to see them again. With this single-minded purpose, he braces himself against her onslaught. He has found a single clue, a glimmer of hope, and now it is all or nothing. He pushes back, the ground around him erupting from the force of their clash. In the midst of their duel, Kajura Kaikeru parries a flurry of strikes from Kazari Kyuko, who leaps high above him. He reflects that if there is one thing he has learned from this fight, it is that she is terrifyingly fast. He realizes she relies heavily on her physical prowess, simply dodging and reacting to his attacks as they come. Gritting his teeth, he knows this is a sink-or-swim moment. Seizing an opportunity, he closes the distance between them, his expression hardening with resolve as he shouts the activation for his skill. Trap set. He thrusts his sword forward, but she deftly bats it aside with her bare hand. He roars that he won't let her get away, forcing himself to ignore the failed strike as an arrow-like symbol flashes into existence on the ground beneath her. The symbol erupts in a brilliant flash. From its center, a dark, star-shaped projectile materializes and hurtles toward Kazari. With a sharp grunt, she leaps back to evade it. The projectile detonates in a blinding flash of light, catching her mid-air. She cries out in surprise as the force of the explosion engulfs her. As she is thrown off balance, Kaikeru sees his chance. "Now!" he yells, as another magical sigil shines at his feet. Kazari's eyes widen in alarm as she feels a sudden, powerful tug. The unseen force yanks her violently through the air, pulling her directly towards Kaikeru, who stands ready amidst a swirl of dark, shadowy energy. Just before impact, Kazari's body begins to glow. A synthesized voice announces that the damage threshold has been surpassed, and the simulation is now ended. The battle concludes. Kaikeru explains his strategy to a surprised Kazari. He knew her ability, Lamp, was not for combat, and therefore deduced she wouldn't be able to recognize the pattern of his trap skill. He bowed his head formally, thanking his opponent for the fight. Kazari Kyuko, her face shadowed, could only stammer out a single word in response. Her composure shattered in an instant. With a face contorted in pure rage, she roared at him, demanding to know what he was doing and screaming that she had lost. She continued her tirade, complaining about the immense pain of having to return for another attempt. With a final, frustrated cry, she turned and stomped away. He watched her go, noting her menacing attitude, but surmising she must have her own circumstances. It was only then that he realized she was likely younger than him, a fact obscured by her incredible strength. As she departed, she shouted a final warning for him to remember this day. Alone now, he reflected on the outcome. He had won, but the victory felt hollow. He knew it was only because he had managed to take her by surprise. He understood that he wouldn't be able to rely on luck for all three fights. He concluded that simply leveling up wouldn't be enough to overcome the inherent disparity in abilities between different jobs. A new method was necessary. Later, he met up with Ko. As she walked just ahead of him, she asked how his session went. He admitted that he had barely managed to win. She turned to him with a smile, and he asked about her day. Ko explained that her evaluation went smoothly and was over quickly, as they only needed to gauge her abilities. He remarked that they had both done a good job. Ko then noted that they still had some time before they were supposed to meet up with the others. Kaikeru agreed, affirming that they could take their time. Their quiet moment was suddenly shattered by a cheerful shout of "Oni Ai-chan." Kaikeru's sister came running towards them, flanked by Itomi Kakuri and Ashitara Yukiko. He could only stare, completely taken aback by their sudden appearance. He looks at the assembled group and asks why they are all there. His sister explains that they finished their own tasks quickly and had nothing else to do. He observes that she seems to be in particularly high spirits, and she beams, confirming that she certainly is. She then reveals the reason for her excitement. They are all going to the hot springs. Kaikeru looks on with a faint, accepting smile. Their destination is the Reize Adventure Training Hall, where the mission is to guard a hot springs town. Inside the hall, a training session is in full swing. Itomi Kukuri and Ashitara Yukiko clash in a fierce spar as Kaikeru, and an armored knight watch from the sidelines. The knight explains to him that this is a joint business between Reize and the Adventurer Association. The facility is self-governing and has a contract to dispatch adventurers, ensuring some are always present. Kaikeru questions their role as simple guards. As their bout ends, he commends Yukiko for a good job. She seems flustered, admitting that she was forced onto the defensive after her stealth ran out. From aside, a voice calls out that it's time to change. His attention is immediately drawn by his sister, who brandishes a small knife and declares her intention to fight and beat him next. He calmly accepts the challenge, telling her she can try. Meanwhile, Kakuri asks about the guard duty they were discussing. She wants to confirm if their only task is to delve into any dungeons that might appear and if there is anything unusual about the assignment. The armored knight clarifies the matter, explaining that any dungeons that appear in that location can be cleared at the discretion of the dispatched adventurers. She affirmed her desire to secure the Hot Springs town as quickly as possible. In response, Reize Agino questioned if this meant she wanted to speedrun the mission, noting that for adventurers, the ability to access the local dungeon immediately was a significant benefit. The discussion was punctuated by Agino effortlessly flipping Kaikeru's sister onto the ground. The younger girl, undeterred, immediately demanded a rematch with a handicap. The armored knight then turned to Kaikeru, stating calmly, "I'm up next." From her position on the floor, his sister clung to the knight's armored leg, looking up with pleading eyes. She asked if the knight intended to handle the guard duty assignment all by herself. The knight clarified the arrangement. While only 1 or 2 people would be permanently stationed there at any given time, she proposed that they all travel there together for the upcoming weekend to begin. As Kaikeru's sister processed this, a sudden realization began to dawn on her. Her eyes widened, pupils transforming into sparkling stars as the true implication of their destination hit her. With breathless excitement, she exclaimed, "We can bathe in the hot springs." She shot her arm into the air with a triumphant cheer, declaring her love for hot springs. Watching her outburst, Kaikeru wondered to himself if it was truly acceptable to have such an ulterior motive for a mission. Her excitement was boundless as she shouted that she couldn't wait. Nearby, Toga Natsum handed Kaikeru the keys to the rental car, offering to return it for them. As he thanked her, Agino reminded them they would need to bring luggage. The group then set off on foot. Ashitari Yukiko spotted a bus stop, prompting Itomi Kakuri to ask why they weren't driving. Kaikeru explained his desire to experience the public transportation used by the locals. As they walked, Hagane Ko and Itomi Kakuri looked around at the unfamiliar streets, wondering aloud what the town and its people would be like. He, however, felt a growing sense of unease. Kaikeru admitted to himself that he hated being in large groups of people, a feeling that was especially pronounced when he wasn't feeling well. He is jostled by the crowd while boarding the bus. A young woman in a school uniform bumps into him, offering a quick apology before turning away with a stern expression. She then turns back, her eyes widening in recognition. Kaikeru and his sister look back at her, surprised by her sudden exclamation. A short while later, the bus is on its way. The same young woman sits with a deep frown, her eyes narrowed in irritation as the next stop is announced. Seated elsewhere on the bus, Kaikeru feels a persistent gaze upon him. He looks over and realizes the girl from before is staring intently in his direction. He finds the situation a little awkward. Behind him, his companions wonder aloud what could be wrong with the girl, noting that she seems to have come with her own party. Indeed, he is surrounded by his sister and the rest of his female companions, all seated together. The sight of him with so many women only deepens the other girl's scorn. She internally fumes, wondering if he's some kind of playboy and annoyed that she lost to such a happy-go-lucky type. Kaikeru, feeling the intensity of her stare, realizes her expression has hardened into a glare and wonders what he did to upset her so much. Just then, his sister leans over the seat, cheerfully offering him a snack and calling him Oniai-chan. The term of endearment catches the other girl's attention. Her eyes widen as a thought strikes her. They don't look like siblings. She begins to draw a conclusion. Her mind leaps to a shocking conclusion. Could he be a Lilicon, too? The thought fills her with disgust, her face contorting in revulsion. On the bus, Kaikeru's sister asks him how his meeting with the young lady of the Kiryuin family went. As he starts to answer, he breaks into a cold sweat, sensing a sudden wave of bloodlust from an unknown source. The story is being recounted by Hagane Ko, who notes that Jessica Kiryuin was handling things better than she had feared. A flashback shows Jessica standing resolutely before an attendant, declaring that she won't let a single failure bring her down. She vows to become a proper lady worthy of the Kiryuin name, for the sake of all the people they employ. Ko continues, explaining that it was her responsibility and she had been worried Jessica would be fired. Listening to the tale, Kaikeru's expression softens. He understands her situation and sincerely hopes she becomes a great adventurer. From a seat behind them, the student girl leans forward with a sharp, suspicious look. She asks Kaikeru if he knows the girls he's with. He glances back slightly, replying that he doesn't, that they had just met. Her face flushes with indignation at his response. Internally, she calls him a pervert and feels like an idiot for sitting so close to him. She desperately wishes for him to get off the bus and wonders where his group could possibly be going. As if summoned by her thoughts, the bus slows to a halt. The announcement for the final station is made, and both Kaikeru's group and the silently fuming student girl disembark. Upon stepping into the town, Kaikeru's sister looks around in delight, exclaiming how charming it is. Both Kaikeru and the student girl observe their new surroundings with a shared look of curiosity. The student girl, still following them, finally asks where they are all going. Again, Ko points ahead, indicating the direction she believes they need to go. As the group proceeds, Ko announces their destination. The inn where they will be staying is called Kazuri Garden. In the distance, a large, traditional building comes into view. The name catches Kaikeru's attention. His eyes widen slightly as he murmurs Kazari, trying to recall where he has encountered that name before. As he stood there, the name Kazuri echoing in his mind, the very student from the bus walked past them and through the inn's entrance, announcing her return. Inside, she was greeted by an older woman in a kimono who welcomed her to their humble inn and called her Kyuko. The woman's greeting was cut short, however, as she noticed the guests standing in the doorway, exclaiming in surprise at their presence. Seizing the opportunity, the older woman immediately instructed Kyuko to show the customers around now that she was back. The woman then questioned where Kyuko had been, prompting an annoyed response that she'd already explained it was a busy day. The excuse was curtly dismissed. Just then, another staff member handed Kyuko an apron. In an instant, her weary frustration vanished, replaced by a bright, professional smile as she turned to face the guests. With practiced charm, she warmly addressed the dear customers, ready to guide them to their rooms. At the inn, Kyuko expresses her frustration, questioning why she must be the one to show Kaikeru around. An in-staff member ignores the tension and begins the tour for the group, explaining that each room has a bathroom, with another at the end of the hall, and pointing out the fire escape for emergency use only. She continues down the corridor, gesturing towards their assigned quarters. She indicates one as the 2-person room and the other as the 3-person room. Hearing this, Kaikeru's sister cheerfully grabs his arm, declaring that they will be staying there. Watching them, Kyuko flushes, her mind racing with the mistaken assumption that he is going out with such a young girl. She leans against the sliding door, muttering insults about him being a filthy pervert. In the background, her friends walk away, one remarking that when visiting hot springs, it's customary to separate by gender. Later, Kaikeru, now changed into a yukata, approaches the same staff member. He asks if there's a location with a good view, clarifying that he wants to assess the insecurity and identify common gathering spots. In response, her demeanor shifts to one of manic excitement. She loudly points out a crack in the wall and exclaims that from the veranda, one could see a manhole cover leading to underground storage. Her intensity startles both Kaikeru and his sister. As the staff member twitches with lingering energy, his sister asks what he did to her. Kaikeru admits he has no idea, but reveals that she had lost to him in a spar earlier that day. Her eyes widen in surprise at this revelation. She realizes the staff member must be an A-rank adventurer and exclaims how awesome that is. Overhearing the praise, the adventurer closes her eyes and offers a simple, weary thanks. Filled with admiration, she leaps towards the adventurer, enthusiastically suggesting they become friends. The staff member turns away coldly, stating flatly that she doesn't make friends with weaklings. Kaikeru's sister protests that her attitude is mean and won't win her any friends. The adventurer retorts that she doesn't care. She'll make friends when she leaves this place for Tokyo and mentions she's already been on several expeditions. Observing them, Kaikeru silently notes that she seems quite talented. His sister leaned in close to the inn's staff member, taunting her with the suggestion that if she could just find her way out of the countryside, she could go live in Tokyo. The staff member retorted sharply, telling the girl it must be nice to be so ignorant, and that she had her own circumstances to deal with. Her frustration boiled over. She jabbed a finger forward, declaring it was big talk from someone whose brother had lost to her. Angrily, she demanded to know what the bizarre arrow ability was, a skill she had never heard of, and proclaimed that she would certainly win if they were to fight again. She pressed the point, leaning in to ask why he hadn't gotten such a strange skill, one that could combine with others, properly investigated. Her words hung in the air as Kaikeru's sister, Jessica, and Ko all silently contemplated the same phrase. Bizarre arrow. Having vented her frustration, the staff member sighed with exasperation. Announcing that she was leaving if that was all, she curtly told them to enjoy their stay. As she walked away, Kaikeru watched her go, quietly reflecting on her words. Bizarre, huh? Well, he was not the only one still lingering on the conversation. From around the corner, the staff member peeked back just as he glanced in her direction. A moment later, she reappeared, her tone still clipped, but now helpful. She pointed and gave directions for a nice view. Take a right outside the inn and walk to the big bridge. There, she added an old lady sells delicious manju, and they should go buy some. Watching her go for a second time, his sister noted with a huff that she did end up telling him after all. In the distance, the staff member hunched over, completely mortified by her own actions. In the steaming waters of the inn's hot spring, Hagane Ko lets out a long, contented sigh. She reflects on the day's events, admitting to herself that she's a little surprised by it all. Her thoughts turn to Kaikeru's power, recalling the image of the tendril being associated with it. She concedes that it is a surprising skill, but also reasons that new unique abilities are discovered all the time, and there is still much to learn about both skills and jobs. As the view widens, Kiryu and Jessica asks why Kajuro was kicked out of the Holy Sword Party. Ko relays his explanation, that he wasn't powerful enough, but her expression is doubtful as she admits she doesn't feel that's the real reason. Kaikeru's sister voices their shared dilemma, torn between wanting to know more and wanting to respect his privacy. Jessica agrees that it's hard to ask him directly, suspecting there were other circumstances involved, a sentiment Ko silently shares. In a separate bath, Kaikeru soaks alone with a troubled look. Meanwhile, his sister, now out of the water, worries aloud that if things continue this way, he might start to see them as his real part. He stares into the water, his resolve hardening as he makes a silent promise to himself. Someday, he will tell them everything. His mind drifts back to that pivotal moment. He resolves to tell them about what he saw on the day he received his arrow symbol, the image of the mysterious, tendriled woman vivid in his memory. A flicker of confidence crosses his face. He is certain they will believe him. It's just a matter of when. Later, back in their room, he watches over his sleeping sister. His train of thought is broken as his attention shifts to a notice on the table. Realizing that phone chargers are only available at the reception, he walked through the quiet inn after his bath, wondering if anyone else was still awake. His thoughts turned to Kyuko, and he sighed, realizing she must have lied and gone to a dungeon again. His suspicion was confirmed as he saw Kyuko standing before an older woman, whose stern expression made it clear she was deeply displeased. Kyuko quietly insisted that she hadn't been to a dungeon today. The woman snapped back, demanding she speak up and questioning why it should matter what she says anyway. Watching the intense argument unfold, Kaikeru felt it was impossible to interrupt. The woman pressed on, asking if Kyuko had done her studies, but Kyuko retorted that it was fine as long as she graduated. The woman's expression hardened as she changed the subject, asking with pointed concern if Kyuko was still thinking about going to Tokyo. She then forbade it outright, declaring that she would not allow Kyuko to be an adventurer. She insisted that Kyuko would never be able to survive living that kind of life. Pushed to her limit, Kyuko finally erupted. She screamed back, demanding to know why her guardian got to decide her future, shouting that it was her life and she should be allowed to do what she wants. The familiar conflict struck a nerve with Kaikeru, bringing back a flood of bad memories of when people didn't want him to be an adventurer either. He understood her ambition to be a full-time adventurer, but knew it was a difficult, poorly regarded path that few could walk for more than a decade. He reflected that she must have worked so hard, and unlike him, who had his party holy sword, she was all alone. The guardian's anger gave way to desperation. She pleaded with Kyuko to stop putting herself in such danger, asking what would happen to their home if something were to happen to her. Her argument with Kyuko reaches a boiling point. In a fit of defiance, Kyuko shouts that if the inheritance of the inn is so important, her guardian should find someone else to be her daughter. The harsh words leave her guardian stunned. Kyuko immediately looks down, a flush of regret and anger on her face, as Kaikeru flinches from where he is listening in the hallway. She then unleashes a final, furious cry, wishing for the entire place to go bankrupt. Her guardian can only call out her name in shock, as Kyuko's expression twists with anguish. Her face is a mask of defiance and sorrow, tears welling in her eyes and streaming down her cheeks. Overwhelmed, she turns and runs, dashing past the still-hidden Kaikeru in the corridor. He watches her retreat down the outdoor walkway, his expression unreadable as he processes the scene. Moments later, Kyuko finds a quiet spot on a balcony, leaning against the railing and gazing up at the star-filled night sky. Her solitude is interrupted by Kaikeru's arrival. She turns, her eyes still red, and defensively asks if he came to make fun of her. He calmly replies that he came to cheer her up. Surprised and blushing slightly, Kyuko asks why he would do such a thing, to which he simply says it felt like he should. She rests her arms and head on the railing, admitting she's heard about him. She identifies him as one of the hired guard adventurers, then adds a self-deprecating comment about him doing a nice job for pipsqueaks weaker than herself. She turns away from him as he asks why she wants to be a full-time adventurer. With a hint of defiance, she explains that it's because she's good at it, questioning if that's such a bad reason. She elaborates, her voice quiet against the night air, admitting that being an adventurer is the only thing she was ever the best at. Gazing out at the star-filled sky, she confesses that it has always been her dream. To be in a place where she can shine the brightest is, in her mind, her only real choice. Her expression shifts to one of fierce determination. She tells Kaikeru that even after witnessing the power of Tokyo's top adventurers, she still believes she can catch up to them, vowing that one day she will even defeat the one known as Holy Sword. She challenges him, asking if he doesn't believe her. Before he can fully respond, she adds that it's fine, as she's used to being alone. Kaikeru simply acknowledges her words with a quiet, "I see." Her quiet resignation shatters as she declares passionately that she believes in herself. Even if she isn't given a chance, she proclaims with all her heart she will never give up. In the distance, a streak of light flashes across the night, moving with incredible speed towards a nearby mountain. It impacts the mountainside, erupting in a silent, brilliant flash of energy that illuminates the dark landscape. Startled by the distant explosion, she whirls around, asking what just happened. Kaikeru, however, seems to have been focused on their conversation, responding to her earlier sentiment by stating that he doesn't think her mother truly disbelieves in her. Before she can respond to his unexpected comment, a second, even larger and more powerful blast of light erupts from the same location on the mountain. As the dust from the explosion settles, both Kaikeru and Kyuko stare with wide eyes at the disturbance. A strange energy washes over Kaikeru, a feeling he instantly recognizes. It is the unmistakable signature of mana. Reacting on instinct, Kyuko points toward the source of the energy and breaks into a run, with Kaikeru following close behind. They arrive to find a dark, unstable anomaly crackling in the air near an old gatehouse. Kyuko gasps in recognition, identifying the swirling vortex of energy as a gate. He watches the gate shimmer, a sense of unease growing within him. He calls out to Kyuko, noting that something feels strange. The gate's sudden materialization makes him question if it was just created in that very moment. Before he can ponder it further, the gate ripples, and a bizarre, ghost-like creature with a cartoonish face and a long, lolling tongue pushes its way through the portal. The single entity is immediately followed by a horde of other strange monsters. In an instant, Kyuko is no longer in her school uniform, but in her full adventurer gear. She shouts a warning, her face grim. They are facing monsters from a stampede dungeon. Shortly after dungeons first appeared in the world, a new terror began. In the mountains of Tohoku, monsters suddenly started attacking people, forcing terrified civilians to flee for their lives. This was the work of stampede dungeons, a rare phenomenon that allowed monsters to pour directly into the world. They wreaked havoc across Japan, a nation with little experience in dealing with such threats. In areas where the response was slow, people had no choice but to abandon their homes, leaving devastation in their wake. Even now, the extermination campaigns struggle to make headway against the lingering chaos. Suddenly, a shimmering portal tears open, and a horde of bizarre, cartoonish monsters begins to emerge. Kajura Kaikeru shouts, a frantic warning to his companions that monsters are coming. Responding instantly to the threat, the A-rank adventurer, Kazari Kyuko, sets her jaw with determination. She launches herself forward, a blur of motion streaking towards the newly appeared creatures. Her speed is incredible as she closes the distance. Watching from behind, the Reizei president's daughter identifies the portal as a stampede dungeon. Kaikeru can only marvel at Kyuko's swiftness as the masked girl calls out his name. He turns his gaze back to the swirling portal, his expression grim. He warns the others that this is merely the beginning and that more monsters will be coming soon. Taking immediate command, the Reizei president's daughter begins issuing orders. She tasks Reizei Agino with handling the evacuation, then tells Toga Natsum to contact the association. Finally, she calls out to Tsukage's Tsukasa and Yujui, preparing them for the imminent battle. Responding to the call, Kaikeru stands with Tsukasa and the masked girl, their weapons ready. He declares firmly that they will stop the monsters right where they stand. Hearing his declaration from the front line, Kyuko glances back, a look of confusion on her face. She questions his decision, wondering why he chose this specific spot to make their stand. She recalled her training with a sense of unease. Adventurers are thoroughly taught one core principle when encountering a stampede dungeon. They must fight the monsters directly in front of the gate. This was because such dungeons were notoriously difficult to conquer quickly. If the monsters managed to break past the defensive line and spill into the world, the number of casualties would be catastrophic. Her gaze lifted to the building before them, a dreadful realization dawning on her. Kaikeru's plan meant the inn itself would become the battlefield. Kaikeru approached, calling her name Kazari. He acknowledged her dislike for the situation, but pleaded for her help, insisting it was the only way to minimize casualties. Before a decision could be made, the masked girl shouted a warning that the monsters were coming. Kaikeru immediately drew his weapon and charged forward to meet the bizarre horde pouring from the dungeon's entrance. He glanced back, telling Kazari that her group looked strong and would be fine without him, effectively dismissing her from the fight he intended to wage. She watched him go, her expression hardened. Kaikeru stopped, a look of shock on his face as he understood her true intention. She meant to clear the dungeon herself. He lunged, grabbing her arm to stop her and demanding to know if she wanted to die attempting it alone. She violently threw off his grip, sending him stumbling back. A strange, jack-in-the-box monster popped out nearby, but she paid it no mind, her focus locked on the dungeon. Whirling back towards him, her body crackling with power, she furiously demanded if he was telling her to just stand by and watch as the inn was destroyed. Kaikeru could only stare, stunned by her outburst. Without another word, she launched herself directly into the swirling darkness of the dungeon gate. Kazari! Kaikeru screamed in desperation, as the masked girl cried out, Oni-I-chan! As Kazari vanishes into the dungeon, Kaikeru is informed by the masked girl that she has contacted the association, but reinforcements will not arrive for another half an hour. He grimaces at the news. Due to their rural location, the wait is long, and he cannot simply abandon their post. He snaps at someone to grow up, reasoning that even if he were to chase after Kazari, there is no guarantee of survival. Furthermore, he argues, reducing their numbers at the defensive line would only place his two remaining companions in greater danger. The target of his frustration is Tsukasa, who runs toward him calling his name. She urgently proposes that they split up, declaring that she knows he wants to go after the woman who charged in alone. She insists that he must go, expressing confidence that she and Agino can handle any monsters that get past them. Her primary concern is for the other fighter, who is now completely alone inside the dungeon. Agino looks toward Kaikeru, who begins to protest, pointing out the danger she would be in without it. Before he can finish, Yujui Turu steps forward, addressing Agino directly. She states firmly that it is now Agino's turn to trust her. Her words resonate with Agino, whose expression softens as she looks at her companion and affirms that she does, in fact, trust her. She then turns her gaze back to Kaikeru, declaring that they are Vestige, a group that challenges the most difficult paths together. Faced with the united front of his companions, Kaikeru finally relents. He shouts his agreement, but immediately follows it with a stern warning for them all to be careful. His concern is met with Tsukasa's bright reassurance to leave the defense to them. Yuzui adds her own caution, reminding Kaikeru that the dungeon he is about to enter is a high-level one, and that he must be careful as well. He shouts his thanks over his shoulder to his companions, leaving them to hold the line as he plunges into the dungeon alone. The interior is a bizarre, whimsical landscape filled with oversized toys and floating stars. He scans the area, his mind racing. He wonders where Kazari is, realizing with alarm that she must have pushed even further inside. He leaps through the world of toys, noting a clear path forward. An arrow symbol on the ground alerts him to a set trap. Considering the high level of the dungeon, he speculates that the boss must be something formidable, perhaps a marionette Alice, or even a killing chair. The thought of a marionette Alice conjures a grim image in his mind, a shadowy, ominous figure. He knows such an opponent would be incredibly difficult to face by himself. Shaking off the grim thought, he spots another trap symbol on the ground. With a swift movement, he vaults over a large, block-like creature, his blade flashing as he cuts it down midair. As he lands, another enemy lunges from the side, a grotesque toy monkey with a sword and shield. The sudden ambush catches him off guard, and he lets out a curse. He twists away from the monkey, only to be sent reeling by another attack. A gigantic ruler slams down from above, forcing him into a desperate, mid-air evasion. Regaining his balance amidst the chaotic landscape of oversized toys, he realizes the true danger of this place. He can't distinguish between harmless scenery and active monsters. This uncertainty makes every step treacherous. He stumbles, realizing he can't even be sure if the ground beneath his feet is solid. Setting his own traps is too dangerous, and he grits his teeth, acknowledging how bad the situation has become. Despite the danger, his resolve hardens. He catches a glimpse of Kazari in the distance, moving with incredible speed as she dispatches her own foes. He knows she must be even further inside, and he can't afford to waste any more time just reaching her. On the checkered floor, Kazari Kyuko grits her teeth, her face a mask of strain and frustration. A figure looms over her. The tendril demoness extends a hand, her voice echoing as she offers Kazari what she has supposedly been waiting for. Kazari's eyes widen, fixed on the entity above. Elsewhere in the chaotic toy room, Kaikeru freezes. A familiar sensation washes over him, the same feeling as before. He looks up in alarm, his mind racing as he questions the impossible recurrence. The feeling is immediately followed by a system notification materializing before his eyes. A physical card appears in his hand, bearing a distinct, glowing symbol of an arrow. The system confirms the nature of a new power, mid-air deployment. He stares into the distance, the words echoing in his mind. A new skill, granted to him in the heat of battle. As he navigates the treacherous dungeon, he questions the convenient timing. He dismisses coincidence, wondering if that mysterious girl is once again behind this strange turn of events. His thoughts are violently interrupted as he leaps into the air, narrowly dodging the swinging weapons of oversized toy soldiers. From her vantage point, the tendril demoness lets out a chilling laugh, mockingly wondering if he has the luxury to hesitate. At that moment, one of the toy soldiers lands a solid blow, knocking Kaikeru off balance. The impact brings clarity. Suspended in the air, he realizes he instinctively understands this new ability, just as he did with the arrow symbol. He accepts the situation, acknowledging that without using this power, he won't be able to catch up. He shouted his decision into the chaotic space, declaring that he would trust the mysterious entity. Though he didn't understand her motives, he surmised that she also wanted him to rescue the girl. In response, the tendril demoness, watching from a distance, activated the skill. A glowing sigil, an arrow symbol, materialized in the air before him. He immediately put the new ability to use, leaping into the air and deploying the glowing trap symbol in the empty space beneath his feet. It solidified, creating a platform from which he could propel himself forward. The maneuver allowed him to fly over the horde of toy soldiers, one of which swung its blade uselessly at the spot he had just vacated. While still airborne, he reached out and manifested another symbol far ahead, preparing his next foothold in the sky. Landing deftly on the newly formed platform, he marveled at the power he now wielded. He thought to himself that this ability was insane. He considered the implications. Traps usually required a physical surface for placement, but now he could deploy them on anything in midair and at whatever angle he desired. Launching himself once more, he came to a profound realization. The entirety of the space around him was now his personal terrain. This new power fundamentally changed the very nature of what a trapmaster was capable of. His confidence was immediately checked. He attempted to deploy another trap on a monster below, but missed its mark and dissipated. He grunted with effort, realizing that despite its power, the ability was strangely difficult to master. The mental strain was immense. He felt a wave of nausea, realizing it was too much for his brain to process. Previously, traps were simply deployed in the direction his arm was facing. Now, with infinite possibilities for placement, the sheer number of choices was overwhelming, causing a physical backlash. He stood amidst the surreal landscape of toys and cartoonish foes, the mental vertigo from his new skills still threatening to overwhelm him. But there was no time to acclimate. He realized he would just have to get used to it on the fly. Gritting his teeth against the strain, sweat beading on his brow, he sent a desperate plea across the battlefield. He promised he would catch up to her, begging her to please stay safe until he could. As his words hung in the air, Kazuri Kyuko stood her ground, her rapier held at the ready. A small, spectral creature with glowing eyes drifted towards her, but her expression was a mask of unwavering resolve, prepared to face whatever came next. Amidst a panicked evacuation across a bridge, an official tries to maintain order, urging people to stay calm. He is interrupted by a frantic man who grabs him, shouting that his daughter has gone missing in the chaos. The man's voice cracks with desperation as he screams, consumed by the fear of what might happen to her. Overhearing the plea, Kazari Kyuko's resolve hardens. She bursts forward at blinding speed, confident she can clear the dungeon and stop the gate. Her eyes lock on her target, the boss room. She arrives before a fantastical castle, its spires reaching toward a sky filled with ethereal constellations. This is the final chamber. Without hesitation, she passes through its open doors. Inside, a faint wobbling sound is followed by a sharp click, drawing her attention to a figure standing in the gloom. The figure reveals itself to be a large, unsettling marionette. It moves with a mechanical clatter, its long nose and droopy eyes giving it a lifeless appearance as a wind-up key turns slowly in its back. It raises a hand, dangling a smaller, simpler puppet from its strings. Kyuko watches, her mind processing the bizarre sight. Her opponent is a doll. With a determined look, she offers a curt apology, readying her rapier. There is no time to waste on this strange foe. She lunges, blade extended, shouting that she doesn't have time to watch its performance. The attack is swift and direct. Her thrust is suddenly stopped as two large, cartoonish monsters, a panda and a teddy bear, materialize and intercept her blade, blocking her path. Her attack is parried, and she realizes with a jolt that there are other monsters here. More than that, she understands the main figure isn't a monster at all. Ignoring the lesser creatures, she launches herself through the air, closing the distance to the strange, doll-like entity. As she flies toward her target, the truth becomes clear. The large doll is the puppet master, manipulating the others from afar. With a furious shout, she carves a path through the intervening creatures, batting them aside to clear her way. But her blade suddenly stops dead, its momentum halted by an unseen force. A nearly invisible thread, manipulated by the marionette, has caught her rapier mid-swing, yanking it to a halt. Forced to change tactics, she dashes through the horde of stuffed animals, weaving between them. She quickly deduces their purpose. The stuffed animals are filled with hidden threads, each one a trap designed to ensnare her. The threads are almost invisible to the naked eye, and she knows she cannot keep dodging them forever. She spots an opening. The puppet master's mobility is limited. If she can just get within reach, she can end this. With renewed resolve, she leaps directly over the pit of creatures, aiming for the master. Her aerial assault was immediately challenged. As she soared over the horde, one of the cartoonish monsters lunged up from below, its maw wide. She cried out in frustration, her attack path threatened. Refusing to be stopped, she steeled her resolve, knowing she couldn't afford to go down like this. She pushed past the immediate threat, her focus locked entirely on her target. Her rapier extended, she descended directly towards the seemingly placid marionette Alice. Just as her blade neared its mark, a sharp click echoed in the air. Her expression shifted from determination to sudden, wide-eyed shock. The source of her alarm became terrifyingly clear. Her body froze in midair, suspended by the very threads she had sought to avoid. Below, the marionette remained still as Kyuko realized with dawning horror that she couldn't even lift a finger. In a new violation, her arm moved on its own. With a jerk, it was pulled back, a sensation of utter powerlessness washing over her as she understood she was being manipulated. The invisible force tightened its grip, twisting her hand. The rapier, once her weapon, was now a tool turned against her. Her arm was forced around in a horrifying arc, the point of her own blade now aimed directly at her throat. The cold steel pressed against her skin. Powerless, she could only watch as the marionette controlled her every move, the situation growing more desperate by the second. With gritted teeth and panicked eyes, she fought against the puppet master's control, her own body now her most immediate and deadly enemy. Her desperate struggle was suddenly interrupted. A young man with a dark, tattered cloak burst onto the scene, his sword wreathed in flame, announcing that he had made it just in time. His sudden appearance drew the attention of both combatants. The towering marionette Alice turned its head with an audible creak, while Kazuri Kyuko stared in disbelief, a shocked cry escaping her lips. In response to the intrusion, the marionette simply swayed its own small puppet, and Kyuko was flung through the air, her rapier aimed directly at the newcomer. His grip on his own sword tightened, the blade quivering with contained energy. She landed opposite him, forced into a dueling stance. With urgency, she warned him that her movements were being controlled by the marionette. He calmly replied that he was already aware, knowing that marionette Alice uses threads to manipulate adventurers like puppets. Hearing his confirmation, she insisted he get away quickly. She explained that what made the ability so dangerous was that the victim retained all their original strength and skill. He looked at her, his expression firm, questioning why she was fighting him even though she knew she couldn't win on her own. She looked away, her resolve wavering slightly. She admitted that she was the one who had recklessly barged in, taking a chance because she thought someone might need help. With a pained expression, she asked if he really had the luxury of worrying about her. His response was a furious shout, demanding to know how he could possibly run off and leave her die. Panicked, she screamed back that if he stayed, he would die as well. Ignoring her plea, he told her not to give up just yet. He promised to get her out of there and urged her to hold on tight as he activated a skill, aerial extension, causing a glowing path to form beneath his feet, lifting him into the air. He launched himself from the magical platform, soaring towards the controlled Kyuko. She looked up in alarm, suddenly realizing that the traps were floating in the air before one struck her with a sharp impact. The blow sent her reeling, and he saw that she was being dragged along by the threads that followed him. He noted that while she was still being pulled, her speed was not as great as it was when she was attacking from above ground. With this brief opening, he met her forced attack, their blades clashing with a shower of sparks. He parried her relentless aerial assault, realizing their agility was evenly matched. While his powerful shield could deflect her blows, he struggled to land any of his own. He knew he had to locate the threads controlling her, and fast. In the exchange, one of her strikes slipped past his guard, impacting him with a sharp jolt. Despite the pain, a grim smile crossed his face. He had managed to land a blow of his own. He declared this was his chance to sever the threads once and for all. Her eyes widened in surprise. Below them, a single, invisible thread attached to her wrist twitched violently and then snapped. With the thread severed, her left arm was suddenly free. A look of dawning comprehension crossed her face as she realized she had to cut the remaining ones herself. As she moved to sever the next thread, a small, toy-like creature suddenly appeared, blocking her blade with a dull thud. From a nearby rooftop, Marionette Alice observed the struggle, a silent puppeteer watching her show. He found himself surrounded by a swarm of spectral toys, a manifestation of the crowd's skill. He understood with frustration that no matter how many of the puppet strings he managed to cut, they were instantly reattached. The puppeteer watched, her expression confident as Kyuko's movements were once again restricted. Kaikeru could only grit his teeth in frustration, realizing how close he had come to freeing her, only to fail. Kyuko stood motionless, once more a perfect puppet, surrounded by an army of toys before a whimsical castle. Atop its highest tower, Marionette Alice presided over her reclaimed doll. He assessed the grim situation. Not only was his stamina draining, but the mana cost of maintaining his aerial skill was immense. He knew he couldn't keep this up for long. He had to devise a new plan, and quickly. Observing the unfolding chaos, Kazuri Kyuko is struck by a single, overwhelming thought. It is all simply amazing. As he parries her attacks, Kaikeru analyzes her technique with a critical eye. He can tell just by looking that she has a perfect grasp on the range and duration of all her traps. This isn't merely a unique ability, he realizes. It's a skill she must have practiced tens of thousands of times to achieve such mastery. And yet, despite this incredible skill, she appears overwhelmed, struggling against the sheer number of cartoonish monsters swarming the area. He grits his teeth, knowing he cannot hold out for much longer. He has to find a way to cut all the strings that are manipulating her. In a decisive move, he leaps back and unleashes a wide, arcing attack, the arrow, symbol slash. The slash cuts through the air, but its effect is minimal. He notes that out of the hundreds of creatures, he barely cut any. Attacking at random is clearly no good. He resolves to target the source directly. He forces himself to remain calm, confident that an opportunity to close the distance will come. His grip tightens on his weapon as he spots an opening and prepares to strike. Now, he lunges, using an arrow symbol to propel himself with incredible speed directly at one of the small, floating monsters. His true target is the massive, shadowy figure looming behind Kazari. He taunts it, asking if it thought it could control him as well. Since the string is attached to the monster, he declares he can interfere with the puppeteer directly. The sudden disruption throws Kazari off balance, and she realizes her movements have become slower. The shadow vanishes. Kazari looks up, her expression one of pure shock. As Kaikeru falls through the empty air, the true enemy reveals herself, a colossal, elegant marionette. He can only cry out his companion's name, Kazari. He grunts as the puppets suddenly shift their attack, converging on Kazari in a violent explosion. He watches from a distance, bewildered, questioning why the enemy would suddenly try to kill its own pawn. As the giant marionette looms, he realizes with a grimace that he's blown his chance. His mind flashes back to his own attack on Kazari, the one meant to sever her connection to the puppeteer. He now understands it was all a bluff. The marionette never intended to kill her. Doing so would only mean losing a valuable piece in its fight against him. He clenches his teeth in frustration, admitting to himself that he should have kept his cool. His body had moved on its own, a reaction Kazari observes with a look of concern. Her attention snaps back to the true enemy. With tears of frustration in her eyes, she screams at the towering figure, calling it a coward and demanding it fight its own battles. Kaikeru watches her outburst, his expression hardening as he processes the situation. He concludes that the enemy probably won't try to take control of him again. He braces himself, swords held wide, realizing the enemy's new strategy. From now on, they will simply try to crush him with overwhelming numbers until he is dead. As if on cue, a massive axe hurtles through the air. Without hesitation, he shoves Kazari out of the projectile's path, taking the brunt of the impact himself with a sharp cry of pain. The initial blow is followed by a barrage of smaller projectiles, spikes, hammers, and blades that pierce his body. Kazari can only watch, her face a mask of shock and horror, as he is overwhelmed by the assault. He ignores Kazari's desperate plea for him to run away. Despite the blades piercing his body, his gaze is firm as he calls her name, reminding her that he told her not to give up. He continues, explaining that he needs her help to defeat their foe and that she has a home she must protect. He urges her to keep her eyes open and not miss the chance he is about to create. Even as enemy attacks continue to explode around them. With a grimace of intense pain, he channels energy through his wounded body. Kazari can only watch in stunned silence as he prepares to make his move. He roars, "Now!" and unleashes a skill, arrow symbol. Grasping Kazari firmly, he launches them both forward in a powerful, directional burst of speed. As they hurtle through the air, she realizes with a shock that he has applied the movement technique to both of them at once. Their trajectory sends them careening towards a building. Kazari cries out as they smash through a window, shattering glass and splintering the frame. The combined power of the arrow symbol and a slash propels them clean through the structure, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Emerging from the other side, they are now on a collision course with a massive brick smokestack. From a distant rooftop, Marionette Alice watches as Kazari realizes with dawning horror that she cannot dodge the impact. In that final instant, he twists his body, positioning himself to take the full force of the crash. The tower explodes around them as he shields her completely from the devastating impact. He looks down at her, his face battered and weary. With a faint, sad smile, he asks if he ended up looking lame in the end. Tears well up in Kazari's eyes as she stares into the dust and debris, her face smudged and grim. She refuses to accept what has happened, uttering a single, defiant word: nonsense. Her denial is met with a startling sight. Amidst the wreckage, Kaikeru stands beside her, alive. His jacket is tattered and dissolving into dark particles, but he holds his sword at the ready. Across the ruined plaza, Marionette Alice observes them, her legion of smaller puppets scattered before her, poised for battle. His defiant stance, however, is short-lived. He groans, his body suddenly giving way as he lurches forward. Kazari reacts instantly, catching him before he can collapse and crying out in alarm. He struggles to remain upright, insisting that she not worry. He claims he only pushed himself too hard and that the real fight is just beginning. Kazari looks on, unconvinced. She can sense that he is not merely hurt, but that something else is deeply wrong. Leaning on her for support, his expression grim with effort, he begins to outline their only path to victory. He tells her there is a specific trick to taking down Marionette Alice. He explains the grim mechanics of their opponent's power. Dodging all of her invisible strings is impossible, and one is bound to connect eventually. Their strategy must be a pact of mutual rescue. When one of them falls under her control, the other must immediately sever the controlling string. With the plan established, he makes a critical admission, confessing that he is in no condition to fight at full strength. He asks her to take the lead on the front line. He looks to her for confirmation, asking directly if she can do it. Her response is immediate and fierce, her eyes blazing with renewed purpose as she retorts with defiant confidence. "Who do you think you're talking to?" Her confidence galvanizes them both. She turns back towards their foe, her expression set with determination, and declares, "Let's go smash that doll." Behind her, Kaikeru watches, his own resolve hardened by her strength. With their strategy set, they launch their counterattack, sprinting across the rubble-strewn ground. In response, the horde of smaller puppets surges forward to meet them. The two warriors brace for the impact, weapons ready to cut a path through the swarm. She charged forward alongside Kaikeru, their movements perfectly synchronized as they closed the distance. As they ran, a look of startled realization crossed Kaikeru's face. He was astounded by her skill. It was difficult enough for the person in the lead to keep the entire battlefield in mind, he thought. Yet without even looking at him, she was perfectly matching his speed. He realized with dawning admiration that she would be an amazing ally to have. As if to prove his point, her rapier began to glow with concentrated energy as she lunged forward, taking the lead for a decisive strike. The attack found its mark, striking Marionette Alice's arm with explosive force. The puppet's limb shattered into splinters under the force of the blow. As the battle begins, the Marionette Alice reveals a startling transformation. Kajura Kaikeru shouts in alarm at the sight of its newly formed arms. Beside him, Kazuri Kyuko urges caution, admitting she has never seen this before and speculating that they may have waited too long, allowing some kind of timer to activate. The creature now brandishes a multitude of long, sharp rods, held aloft by its spindly, newly manifested limbs, poised for a deadly assault. It immediately unleashes a blindingly fast barrage of strikes, forcing both Kyuko and Kaikeru to leap back and narrowly evade the attack. Her face, however, is alight with exhilaration. "Fantastic," she declares, her eyes fixed on her foe, relishing the chance to finally fight it directly. From the sidelines, Kaikeru marvels at her incredible speed. The duel erupts into a chaotic storm of movement as Kyuko and the marionette clash. He watches, frustrated, realizing their movements are far too swift for him to intervene. He resolves to find another way to help. Weaving through the relentless attacks, she analyzes the situation. The marionette's reach with its extended weapons is far greater than her own. She concludes that to stand a chance, she must somehow close the distance and strike its main body. As she formulates her plan, Kaikeru provides the opening she needs. He chants, aerial extension, flame, causing several glowing magical sigils to materialize in the air. He warns the marionette to move carefully, lest it be caught in his traps as a creature of pure flame lunges from one of the sigils. The new threat forces the marionette to react. Kyuko observes with sharp eyes as it begins to retract its weapons, pulling them closer to its body to defend itself. Seeing the creature's defenses shift creates the momentary opening she was waiting for. With a determined thought, she surges forward, closing the distance in an instant. She brings her foot down in a powerful stomp directly onto the marionette's head, driving it towards the ground. From the sidelines, Kaikeru roars in encouragement, yelling for her to take it down. He watched her resolve harden into a battle cry. Kyuko screamed her defiance, declaring that she would never be defeated in a sword fight. Her blade struck true, shattering the marionette's form into countless pieces. With a final shout, she declared the fight to be over. But as the pieces fell, the marionette's head, still intact, opened its mouth wide. From his vantage point, Kaikeru's eyes widened in horror as he identified the new threat, poison needles. Before a warning could be shouted, a long, sharp needle erupted from the puppet's mouth, piercing Kyuko's shoulder. The marionette's voice echoed with malice, stating it was too bad and that it wouldn't be caught off guard again. The force of the blow sent her reeling through the air. Kaikeru cried out her name in alarm as he watched her fall. As she plummeted towards the ground, a sudden volley of sharp, dark projectiles erupted from below, streaking upwards to meet her. But the projectiles were not for her. They shot past, impaling the pursuing head of Marionette Alice. Landing safely, Kyuko clenched her fist, shouting in triumph that they had won. It was his final, perfectly timed shot. Kaikeru had unleashed the arrow just in time, allowing her to celebrate their joint victory. Catching her breath, she turned to him, a flush on her cheeks. She commented that the timing of his final arrow was so perfect, it was almost creepy. He grinned, suggesting she could have phrased her compliment more nicely. Their brief moment of respite was cut short as a brilliant light filled the sky. A massive, shimmering portal materialized before them, and Kyuko identified it immediately, the completion gate. She gazes into the shimmering portal, recognizing that the end lies on the other side. Kaikeru observes that while the main monster spawning should have ceased, some stragglers might still be causing trouble. He urges her to hurry through. As they prepare to cross, a wave of anxiety washes over her. With her eyes squeezed shut, she sends a silent, desperate plea into the ether, hoping that everyone is safe. Without another moment's hesitation, the two of them burst through the gate, leaving the dungeon's oppressive darkness behind. She finds herself on the familiar stone path leading up to the inn, its traditional architecture a comforting sight against the backdrop of the night sky. Her gaze then shifts to Kaikeru, who stands a short distance away, offering a quiet word of acknowledgement for her success. At that moment, the small masked girl rushes to his side, joyfully exclaiming that she knew her Oni-chan would succeed. Nearby, Yuzui and Tsukasa wait, their expressions filled with relief. Though their clothes are tattered from the battle, they are both safe and smiling. Yuzui offers a simple welcome back, her voice filled with emotion. Tsukasa adds with a triumphant grin that they managed to defeat all the monsters on their end. Kaikeru takes in the sight of his victorious companions. Looking out at the tranquil forest under the stars, he confirms his return with a simple, heartfelt affirmation. Elsewhere on the inn's grounds, the armored knight watches her maid, Natsum, walk away, expressing her relief at the outcome. Natsum, in turn, reflects on the difficult choice she faced. She had been torn between her duty to protect her lady and the urge to use her stealth abilities to follow the others into the dungeon. She expresses her immense relief that the crisis ended without further trouble, finding it hard to believe that just two adventurers managed to clear an entire Stampede dungeon on their own. As Kyuko walks away from the group, her expression is distant. Behind her, Kaikeru winces in pain while their companions try to comfort him, assuring him that a healer will arrive soon. Her solitary walk is interrupted by a sharp cry of her name. She turns to see an older woman in a traditional kimono, her guardian striding towards her with a furious look. The woman's face is a mask of anger as Kyuko stops on the bridge, finally acknowledging her presence with a quiet utterance. Without warning, the guardian seizes Kyuko's arm. "You idiot!" she shouts, her voice trembling with rage. "Why the hell would you do something so dangerous?" Her tirade continues as she insists that Kyuko should leave this kind of work to the experts and never do it again. Kyuko stares back, stunned into silence by the verbal assault. Kaikeru intervenes, gently urging the guardian to calm down. He looks at her pointedly, suggesting that she needs to appreciate her daughter a little more. The guardian's stern gaze shifts to Kaikeru. In that moment of distraction, Kyuko turns and continues walking across the bridge, her posture defeated. Kaikeru begins to speak again, his eyes on the guardian. He explains that he was simply worried for Kyuko. He confesses that he doesn't care what might happen to the house, so long as she stays safe. His words reach Kyuko, stopping her in her tracks. Her eyes widen in shock and disbelief at his heartfelt declaration. A realization dawns on her. She knows that her desire to be an adventurer will inevitably hurt her guardian, no matter what she does. But still, an unspoken feeling lingers. Her resolve hardened, her mind echoing with the promise to never give up. She faced her guardian directly, her voice steady despite her injuries. She announced that upon graduation, she was going to Tokyo. She continued, acknowledging that this decision would cause worry, but she wasn't seeking approval. Her path was set. She wanted to be an adventurer. Her voice then rose with fiery conviction, declaring that she would one day return home, but only after she had crushed every single dungeon in the world. By becoming the strongest adventurer in the world, she proclaimed no one would ever be hurt again, and her mother would no longer need to worry. Her only request was that when she finally came back, her mother would greet her with a smile. Her guardian stood silently, observing the determined young woman. A quiet thought surfaced in her mind as she looked at her daughter. She wondered when Kyuko had grown taller than her. Breaking the tense silence, she made a simple request. Kyuko was to bring back some manju, as it would make her grandmother happy. After a brief pause, she quietly added, "And me too." Turning away slightly, she confessed with a hint of sorrow that she wouldn't feel like eating them if Kyuko wasn't around. The unexpected vulnerability in her guardian's words struck Kyuko deeply, causing tears to well up in her eyes and a flush to spread across her cheeks. With quiet emotion, she simply agreed. The two stood together on the bridge under the night sky, a silent understanding reached. Later, Kyuko slept soundly, at peace. The next morning, dressed in casual clothes, she was walking along a path when she saw Kaikeru at a public water tap. He looked up from washing his face, their eyes met, and he acknowledged her with a quiet, surprised "oh." He noticed her presence, asking if she was up early for training. Kyuko, her face turned away, struggled internally. She knew she needed to thank him for the previous day, yet the words wouldn't come out. Flustered, she could only manage a vague confirmation that it was something like that. Her heart began to pound erratically in her chest. A wave of heat rushed to her face as she questioned why this was happening. Her eyes swirled in utter confusion, a single, bewildered sound escaping her lips. As they walk along a paved path, Kaikeru asks Kazari if she's glad she was able to talk things out with her mother. Visibly flustered, her face flushed, Kazari stammers for him to wait and hold up. Her mind races as she tries to rationalize her feelings. She tells herself she must be mistaken, that it's just the suspension bridge effect from their recent battle. If it were anything more, she reasons, it would mean she's far too easy to charm. As she struggles with her thoughts, Kaikeru notes that the timing is perfect, as he has something he wants to discuss. Panicked, Kazari blurts out for him to stop and not talk to her right now. Instead, asking why he doesn't just come with her. He stops, turning to face her directly with a serious expression. He makes a simple, direct declaration. "I want you, Kazari." The words strike her silent. Her eyes widen in utter shock, her mouth falling open as she can only manage a confused "huh." She continues to sputter, completely taken aback by his sudden statement as they stand on the path beneath the trees. Finding her voice, she questions him, exclaiming that it's too sudden and that they've only just met. Kaikeru calmly replies that he doesn't believe time is relevant and begins to explain his reasoning. He meets her gaze, his expression earnest as he delivers his assessment. He tells her plainly that she has the talent for an adventurer. He continues, laying out his logic. He explains that they were in perfect sync when they fought together and that his party needs more vanguards. While he can fill the role, he admits that a trap master is fundamentally a rear guard. He trails off, hesitantly adding that if it's possible, he'd like to, but his practical explanation is met with unexpected fury. Kazari's face contorts with rage, her cheeks burning red. Seeing her reaction, Kaikeru is taken aback and immediately apologizes, asking if he somehow messed up. Still processing his abrupt offer, she asks him to clarify exactly what he is asking of her. He hesitates for a moment before repeating his request, for her to join his party. Unseen by the two, a group of their acquaintances watches from distance. Yukiko sighs, stating that she knew Kazari would refuse, and that Kaikeru is too impulsive. Kokuri, however, recalls that he had been confident he could convince her. As they continue along the path, Kaikeru suddenly realizes that Kazari has stopped walking behind him. He turns to face her, a puzzled look on his face. She stands her ground, demanding to know if he was being serious about what he had just said. He meets her gaze and confirms that he meant it, specifically his comment about them being in sync during their fight. Her hand clenches into a tight fist at her side. With a quiet intensity, she tells him to do it. He can only stare, confused by her sudden shift in demeanor. Spinning around to face him fully, she shouts her decision, her voice ringing with conviction. "I said I'll do it." She immediately clarifies her reasoning, her expression a mixture of determination and a slight blush. It's not because he asked her to join, she insists, but because she had felt the exact same way. His eyes widen in surprise, which quickly turns to pure joy. He exclaims his agreement, realizing that this is exactly what he wants to prove, that together they can achieve even greater things. But she isn't finished. Pointing at him, she tells him to listen carefully, declaring that her dream and her feelings are not wrong in the slightest. He agrees, thinking to himself that if he, of all people, doesn't believe in her, then who will? He agrees to her terms with a simple, if slightly confused, sure. Her face flushes, but her gaze is intense as she warns him to prepare himself. Her warning hangs in the air as she averts her gaze, a deep blush on her face. From a distance, her companions observe the exchange, noting that she has accepted the partnership. As they walk away together, Kazari clings tightly to his arm. He can't shake the feeling that there's more to this arrangement than meets the eye. Meanwhile, at another location, Hagane-ko receives her briefing before proceeding to a rooftop helipad where a helicopter awaits. Standing poised with her hand on the hilt of her blade, she confirms her readiness to the pilot. Hagane-ko of the Holy Sword is deploying. Once airborne, the pilot remarks that it's been some time since they last flew together and asks if she often has business in the north. She responds that she does not, musing that many significant events often start after one leaves the capital. He chuckles, commenting on how much she has matured from the fierce young girl he used to know. With a faint, knowing smile, she simply agrees. Her attention then turns to the churning sea below. She identifies their destination, an underwater stampede dungeon. She remarks on its rarity, this being only the second such occurrence in Japan's history. As the first of the monsters begin to surface, she assesses the threat. Thankfully, they do not appear to be true swimming types, but their presence is a grave danger to any nearby vessels. She resolves to eliminate the surface threat before descending into the dungeon itself. Informing the pilot that she has authorization to use her skills outside the designated battle zone, she commands him to open the door. Leaping into the open air high above the water, she prepares to unleash her secret sword technique, White Light. She unleashes her secret sword technique, White Lightning. A colossal, crescent-shaped wave of pure energy erupts from her blade, arcing across the sky and down towards the churning sea. The energy wave strikes the ocean's surface with devastating force, carving a brilliant, straight line through the water and vaporizing everything in its path. From the helicopter, the pilot watches in disbelief. He asks how she plans to return, and she calmly instructs him to simply pick her up when he sees her floating down below. The pilot can only stare, thinking to himself that she is something beyond human. Meanwhile, under a crescent moon in a dark, eerie forest, Kaikeru's party is locked in a desperate battle. A massive Oni-mask figure looms over them as Tsukasa and Kazari launch a coordinated assault. Kaikeru shouts, declaring that he's blocking the right side and ordering Kazari and Tsukasa to execute their part of the plan. In response, Tsukasa leaps through the air, daggers flashing, and lands with a triumphant declaration that her part is complete. She immediately turns to Kaikeru, excitedly whispering that she won and asking if he saw her appeal. Kazari, standing nearby, looks on with a mixture of shock and irritation. Observing the interaction from a safe distance, the rest of the party comments on Tsukasa's recent cheerfulness. Yukiko notes that fighting has become much easier since they gained a fifth member, while Kakuri suggests that Tsukasa is happy to have found a rival, remarking that they are similar types of fighters after all. With the battle concluded, the group gathers. Kazari asks if they successfully protected all the gates in the area, and Kaikeru confirms it. She notes that this success means the travel restrictions will be lifted, which makes the job worthwhile. Kaikeru agrees, stating he'll take all the badly damaged equipment to the Reize blacksmith for repairs. Tsukasa, however, reports that her own gear is fine and she can handle it herself. He turns his attention to Kazari, who looks at him with a complex expression. She remarks that he's like an adventure machine, admitting it's the first time she's ever met someone who trains and prepares even more than she does. She adds that it feels unfair that he's also a former member of the Holy Sword, musing that this must be how the top adventurers operate. Her contemplation solidifies into fierce resolve. She declares that it suits her just fine, vowing to take on the Origin Gate or whatever else comes their way. She is ready for any challenge. As she and the others traveled, Kaikeru spoke up with a satisfied expression, remarking that they finally have a good party. His tone then shifted to one of seriousness. He announced to everyone that he had something to tell them while they were on the move, stating his desire to explain how he came to learn his arrow symbol skill. Tsukasa, intrigued, asked him what it was. As he began his story, the memory of the encounter flooded his mind, the ethereal form of the tendril demoness and the powerful, arrow-like energy that pierced him. His companions, Kazari, Itomi, and Tsukasa, listened with rapt attention. After hearing about the mysterious girl, Kazari was the first to question the nature of this being, asking if she was even human. Kaikeru admitted that he doubted it, positing that she was likely aligned with the dungeons in some way. He continued, clarifying that the only thing he knew for sure was that she had granted him the skill with a specific goal in mind. The revelation caused a stir among the girls. Itomi noted that she had never before heard of a monster that could speak. He concluded his tale with the unsettling realization that he was now somehow connected to the powerful entity that loomed in his memory. This information gave Kazari pause. She found it too significant to be a simple act of mediation and mused that while many have researched the origins of skills and jobs, the question of why adventurers receive them remains. Kaikeru confessed he didn't know, but added that it felt as if he was being watched. She continued her train of thought, proposing that if these beings from the dungeons can grant skills as they please, it seems only natural to assume that the quests adventurers undertake must also originate from them. The implication of her words spread unease. Itomi voiced a chilling possibility. If they can grant skills, perhaps they can also take them away. Kazari, however, saw an opportunity, wondering aloud if she might be able to acquire a unique skill of her own. Interrupting their speculation, Kaikeru pointed out how dangerous their line of thinking was. At that moment, a sudden shift in the air drew their collective attention upwards, signaling an approaching threat. He concluded that while chaos would spread if his story got out, ignoring the situation felt even more dangerous. He voiced this plan to the group, stating that they needed to investigate the top brass of the association, but only with those who believed him. Before they could tackle the origin gate, Kakuri interjected, wanting to confirm their immediate priority. In response, Kazari accepted the task, declaring she would use her family's connections to investigate. She then added that the hand that emerged from the dungeon bothered her, glancing at a prominent circular marking on her own arm. Kaikeru quietly wondered if they could truly be trusted. Tsukasa suddenly interjected, exclaiming that she understood. She questioned Kaikeru directly, asking why he hadn't told Holy Sword, and mused that the other girls were incapable of dealing with political matters. Her sharp remark drew a challenge from Kakuri, who questioned why Tsukasa was so willing to trust her, a newcomer. Kakuri stated that she would have considered the Reize family more trustworthy. Tsukasa countered that the risk was to Kaikeru, as she might act on the information he provided. He stepped in to quell the argument, explaining his reasoning. He simply felt it was unacceptable to bring Kakuri all the way to Tokyo without telling her the truth of the situation. She conceded that he was right, admitting she would have haunted him for the rest of his life if something had happened in the dungeon while she was kept in the dark. Kaikeru affirmed that they were up against an unknown being and needed to do everything they could. With an apology, Kakuri confessed her selfish reason. She wanted to challenge their foe with all four of them together. With the tension eased, Kazari stood atop a balcony railing and announced with a grin that she would go first as the others watched on. She then turned, her expression alight with fierce determination. She declared that she was relieved to finally know the secret of his absurd power. To her, the path forward was simple. They just needed to defeat their enemies to become the greatest in the world. Her intense declaration was followed by Kakuri's quiet resolve. She addressed Kaikeru, stating that if he was linked to the mystery of the origin gate, he might be her only ticket to finding a miracle cure inside. She didn't feel caught up in danger, but rather saw it as an opportunity. She playfully pinches Kaikeru's cheek, the sound of her grip echoing as she and Kazari scold him for taking so long to confide in them. He apologizes, and Tsukasa chimes in, declaring that his troubles are the troubles of their entire party. Vestige. Tsukasa continues with fervor, proclaiming that whether it's the mysterious origin of adventurers or any other obstacle, they will solve it together. Her words hang in the air as the four of them stand united, a newly forged party with a shared, formidable goal. Their faces reflect a shared determination. With one voice, they agree to the plan. Kaikeru then lays out the practicalities, explaining that there are two conditions they must meet before they can even participate in the Origin Gate expedition. The first, he states, is for him to become an A-rank adventurer, a goal he is already pursuing. He reveals the second, more daunting requirement. They must clear a high-rank dungeon. From the bow of a small boat, Tsukage's Tsukasa points excitedly toward a rocky coastline, asking if that's their destination. Kajura Kaikeru, beside her, confirms that it is. Now ashore, the group of 5 adventurers stands before a swirling, dark anomaly, a genuine A-rank dungeon. Armored Anthololand explains that because of its remote location, it took a while for anyone to realize it had appeared, and that Reize only recently acquired the rights to clear it. She continues, reminding Kaikeru that for their party, Vestige, to rank up, all of its members must clear a high-rank dungeon. He agrees, expressing confidence that with all 5 of them present, and having improved as a team since the Stampede dungeon, they will be alright. With their purpose clear, the party turns and strides into the ominous, crackling portal of the dungeon. Inside, the battle is already fierce. Anders Wilder finds her opponent surprisingly tough, realizing its attention is now focused entirely on her. She glares at the creature, warning it not to look away from her. As the massive avian monster lunges, Armored Blonde leaps in, deflecting the blow with her large shield. Wilder thanks her for the save, while Kaikeru remarks that while the monsters are high level, they can still fight them on even ground. After the encounter, Kaikeru asks if anyone needs healing magic, but is told to save it for the boss. Tsukage's Tsukasa notes that it's tough without a dedicated healer, though Itomi Kakuri adds that their party of muscle brains has plenty of firepower. Kaikeru reflects on this, acknowledging that Vestige's weakness is its inability to last in prolonged combat, which is why he wants to find the boss quickly. The party ventures deeper, arriving in a surreal, eerie chamber. A massive, gnarled tree grows at its center, surrounded by floating office equipment, desks, chairs, calculators, and monitors, all suspended in a strange void beneath a black orb in the sky. Surveying the bizarre landscape, Kaikeru calls out to his companions, stating that it's bad for morale to continue wandering around aimlessly. In response, Tsukage's Tsukasa turns to him with a suggestion. She offers to use her stealth skill to climb up to a higher point and scout the area for the party. She steals her resolve, refusing to let fear get the better of her. Kajura Kaikeru questions if moving alone is too dangerous, but she firmly states that this is an assassin's specialty. With that decided, she cheerfully instructs the party to set up the anti-monster tent and relax, designating a nearby tree as the landmark for her return. Kaikeru agrees, entrusting the reconnaissance mission to her. As she vanishes into the strange landscape, the others remark on the heavy burden a leader must carry. Kaikeru walks away from the group, sighing with the weight of his own thoughts. He reflects on this, realizing he hadn't fully considered the immense responsibility until they formed Vestige. Now, every decision he makes puts the lives of his members at stake. As he stands apart from the newly erected tent, the voice of the tendril Demonis echoes in his mind. She addresses him as Ko, questioning the weight of the burden he bears as the leader of Japan's #1 party. The scene abruptly shifts. A young girl in a uniform peeks from behind a doorway, welcoming back someone named Tsukigase. She then steps out with an umbrella, revealing Kaikeru behind her as she calls out, Oni-chan. That name, however, is not spoken by the girl. It screeches from the gaping maw of a monstrous, bat-like creature. The creature lunges with a shriek. Caught completely by surprise, the party members cry out in alarm and anger at the sudden ambush. In the immediate aftermath, the uniformed girl turns to Kaikeru, asking if the voice they just heard belonged to Tsukigase. Behind them, the rest of the party stands ready for a fight. She worries aloud that Tsukigase is calling for him, perhaps in danger somewhere. Kaikeru urges her to calm down, explaining that monsters with mimicry abilities often have keen hearing. He reasons it's more likely mimicking a voice it heard earlier, not a live cry for help. He and his party hold their position by the massive tree Tsukigase designated as a landmark. The armored knight frets that moving from this spot would be a mistake, while the mimic's unsettling cry of Oni-chan echoes around them. The incessant cries swarm around the armored knight, who declares the situation a nightmare. Below, the party is beset by a horde of smaller bat-like creatures. The uniformed girl admits her growing anxiety from having to conserve her strength. As Kaikeru notes their overwhelming numbers, he and Kakuri agree that something is deeply wrong. She reasons that if Tsukigase were unharmed, he would have noticed such a large commotion by now. The uniformed girl offers to use her stealth ability to search, but Kaikeru immediately forbids it, stating that splitting up would be an even more dangerous move. His expression is fraught with tension as he silently calls out Tsukigase's name. He steels himself, determined not to lose his composure. Panicking now, he thinks, would render his initial decision meaningless, no matter how scared they are. Despite his resolve, doubt begins to surface as he questions his choice to wait. He looks up to see the main mimic monster dropping small, dark spheres upon them from above. As the spheres descend, Kakuri notices a critical detail. A large leaf that had been torn by a monster's attack moments before is now inexplicably whole again. The realization strikes him. He whirls and shouts the uniformed girl's name, Yuzui. He quickly tells her that he's sure Tsukigase is alright, but there must be some reason he can't find him right now. She immediately understands the implication and takes charge, instructing him to fire a light-based arrow, symbol straight up into the air. As he fires the glowing arrow, she prepares her own attack, swinging a dark sphere on a chain. The arrow soars towards a massive, illusory clock face that has materialized in the sky. The arrow vanishes mid-flight, creating only a faint ripple in the air. With a jolt, Kaikeru understands. He knew it. The entire spectacle is an illusion. He watched as Tsukigase descended through the swarm of illusory bats, her spear-like weapon clearing a path through the disorienting space. As she landed, she cheerfully announced her return. Kaikeru called out her name in relief, while the others expressed their gladness that she was safe, chiding her for making them worry. Kakuri simply addressed him as Oni-chan. Kakuri, however, turned to Kaikeru with a deadpan expression, remarking that Tsukigase's actual voice was much cuter than his imitation. He recoiled, flustered by the critique. Meanwhile, Tsukigase explained her reconnaissance. From above, the landscape looked completely different, and she couldn't determine where to drop. She credited Yuzui's landmark for guiding her back to them. Hearing this, Kaikeru felt a sense of accomplishment for having figured out the illusion. Kakuri thanked him for noticing. He acknowledged that a time would come for an even more critical decision and resolved to be ready. His thoughts were interrupted when Tsukigase announced that she had found the boss room and marked a path to it, so they wouldn't get lost. Kaikeru reacted with surprise, but she added a caveat. The room looked a bit strange. He questioned what she meant by strange, and the scene revealed the entrance. A small, intricately patterned door resting in the palm of a colossal, hand-shaped structure made of leaves and vines. Upon seeing the door's patterns up close, his eyes widened in alarm. He recognized the markings, exclaiming that this was an epitaph dungeon. Kakuri, unfamiliar with the term, asked if an epitaph was the boss monster. He confirmed her suspicion, adding grimly that he had only encountered one once before. The armored knight pressed for more details, and Yuzui stepped in to explain. She stated that an epitaph is a weak existence without a physical body, but it possesses some very troublesome abilities. Kaikeru's expression is grim as he reveals the epitaph's primary ability. It can create copies of them. He explains that it reads the memories of an adventurer's comrades, and then projects those memories as 20 separate copies. He continues, noting that it takes a significant amount of time for the copies to fully replicate the power of the originals. Tsukasa realizes that if they have to face 20 opponents, they won't be able to win. The uniformed girl echoes her disbelief. He clarifies the psychological trap. Adventurers find it difficult to attack projections of their companions, and the copies exploit that hesitation. Therefore, their only option is to defeat the projections as quickly as possible. The armored knight remarks on how troublesome the situation is and asks what they should do. Kaikeru, his gaze steady, announces that he has a theory. He instructs the group that once they enter the room, they must focus only on defeating their own copies. He reasons that this eliminates the risk of friendly fire, as anyone they attack will definitively be a fake. With the plan set, he tells them the memory scan will begin the moment they enter, making it a battle of speed. He gives a command, and the party charges into the vast chamber, which is lined with strange, featureless statues. As they stand ready, the statues begin to glow and transform. The armored knight and a uniformed girl watch in astonishment as the figures morph into perfect duplicates of themselves. The knight realizes with awe that this is the power of an epitaph. Her copy, a perfect likeness, materializes before her. With a cry of frustration, the uniformed girl lunges forward, exclaiming how unpleasant it is to fight herself. The battle erupts across the chamber as each member engages their doppelganger. Kaikeru observes that their formation is working well, allowing everyone to attack freely. He urges them to defeat the copies before they can gain any power. Tsukasa, keeping count, notes that only 19 remain. He lunged forward, his blade meeting an identical one. With a grimace, he recognized the weapon, a katana. It was a perfect copy of himself. The two katanas rang out, locked in a stalemate. His eyes widened as he stared down his duplicate. From the sidelines, his companions watched in disbelief, shocked that the copy had not only stopped him, but had already managed to reproduce so much of his strength. The chaos of the battle was suddenly interrupted by another flash of steel. The party members cried out in alarm, realizing the newcomer was not one of the epitaph's copies. They demanded to know who it was, but Kaikeru knew, his gaze fixed on the figure, and he breathed her name, Ko. There she stood, Hagane Ko, katana held at the ready, her gaze steady amidst the swirling battle. With a determined gaze, Kazuri Kyuko lunges forward, her rapier a blur of motion as she unleashes an attack she calls White Lightning, First Sword. Watching from behind, Kaikeru, Tsukasa, and Yuzui are taken aback by the sudden assault, with Kaikeru muttering Ko's name in surprise. Before he can fully process the scene, an unseen force slams into Kaikeru, sending him hurtling backward through the air. He crashes to the ground, looking up in stunned disbelief as Kazari's blade continues to strike at a shimmering, invisible opponent. As her attack sends sparks flying, the armored knight urgently shouts for the others to get behind her, bracing for the incoming assault. The group descends into a frantic argument. Tsukasa accuses Kaikeru of thinking about the holy sword, while with them, calling him a cheater. He tries to deny it, but the armored knight cuts them all off, yelling at them to save the discussion for later. Their squabble is cut short when Yuzui warns that they must defeat the entity quickly, as it is still reading their memories and growing stronger. At that very moment, Kaikeru cries out as he is struck again by the invisible foe. He clutches his head in pain. Tsukasa demands to know how they are supposed to defeat it, to which Kaikeru retorts that it's easier said than done. He sarcastically suggests she just lose her memory, and she snaps back, calling him an idiot. While Kazari holds her position, Kaikeru wonders aloud why the enemy is manifesting as a version of Ko from the past. Tsukasa grimly points out that they should be grateful it isn't the current Ko, otherwise they would have already been beaten. Her words trigger a realization in Kaikeru. His eyes widen as he understands. She's right. The entity they are fighting is a manifestation of Ko from a specific, shared memory. As the truth settles in, the ground before them erupts. A colossal, draconic beast, born from that very memory, bursts forth, letting out a deafening roar that shakes the battlefield. Heeding Tsukasa's command, he moves into position as the party coordinates their assault on the massive beast. Tsukasa declares that their attack should leave the creature wounded, while Kazari agrees to handle its left side. His dejection is palpable after the exchange. Kazari turns to Tsukasa, questioning if they overworked him, noting that only about 20% of the monsters fell for his traps. He cries out in frustration, apologizing for always making them worry about his low level. The outburst triggers a memory for the armored knight. She recalls a time shortly after Ko had become an S-rank adventurer and was just beginning to be recognized for her strength. In this memory, Ko stands with Tsukasa and Kukuri, explaining her philosophy. As Japan's strongest, she insists that their true power as a party comes from the four of them raising their levels together, in unison. The memory shifts to Kaikeru's own past, a moment of struggle where he pushed himself to his limits, spurred on by the encouraging words of his younger sister. Another memory surfaces. Ko acknowledges his hard work, and Kukuri promises she'll catch up to him. But Kaikeru, feeling defeated, believes he can't stop dragging them down and declares that he's fired. The scene changes again, to a paper airplane soaring through a cloudy sky. A reassuring voice states not to worry, that it's fine, because she used to fly. This memory continues with Kaikeru and Ko on some kind of flying platform. Ko remarks that they need a break and laments that Yuko isn't with them. She recalls that Yuko has magazine interviews and suggests they meet her on the way, much to Kaikeru's confusion. As if summoned by the thought, the memory shifts to Ko and Tsukasa looking up to find Yukiko peering down at them. Ko calls out her name, but Yukiko suddenly gasps in pain, clutching her head. Her meeting did not go well. When asked about it, she bluntly told Ko that the sponsors had angered her, so she ran away. A beeping from a device was summarily ignored. She dismissed it as the association manager. The outburst did not go unnoticed. Back at the association building, an official seethed with frustration, exclaiming that the brat had actually left. He complained that she constantly breaks the rules and flees the moment something displeases her, blaming the president for being far too lenient with them. His colleague, a man with glasses, calmly advised him to relax. He continued, a slight smile on his face, acknowledging that the party is an alluring asset. He could understand the president's fondness for them, remarking on their incredible story. A group of 17-year-old childhood friends who arrived in Tokyo with no money or skills, yet managed to shoot straight to the top. He elaborated that if the association can utilize them effectively, the public image of adventurers would improve considerably. His stern-faced colleague conceded the point, noting that Hagane Ko is especially prominent, but that the other two are also quite skilled. His colleague remained troubled, however. He pointed out that there's one useless guy among them and questioned why the party was so obsessed with remaining a group of four, recalling that a journalist had once asked about that very topic. In response, the man with glasses offered a simple explanation for their fierce loyalty to one another. It's just that they're still children. His words seemed to drift over the city itself, where the four adventurers flew on a glowing platform. They gazed out at the sprawling metropolis, the lights twinkling below. One of them remarked what a beautiful view it was, perhaps the only good thing about the city. It is their youthful belief that this life can continue forever that allows them to persevere. As their platform soared through the night, the conversation turned practical. It was mentioned that they lost the sponsor from the other day, the one Ko had sent flying. The action was quickly justified. It was his own fault for being a pervert. Despite the setback, Kaikeru admitted that while there are many annoying things to deal with, it's all quite fun as long as the four of them are together. Kukuri quietly affirmed his sentiment. The quiet moment was interrupted by Ko, who turned to Kukuri. She announced it was time to land, explaining that the president had called for them. Kukuri's expression turned serious as she asked if it was for work. She arrived at the president's office, announcing her presence as she stepped through the door. The man inside, his expression serious, simply told her to come in. He immediately addressed the matter of her party's work, noting that they seemed to be the only ones glad to receive such low-paying jobs, which he viewed as simple exploitation of the young. From across the spacious office, she countered politely, stating that it was all thanks to the dungeon jobs he had passed down to them. Her words seemed to jog his memory. He recalled what she had said during their very first meeting, stating clearly that he remembered her declaration. An adventurer's true calling is to protect people. He brushed off the memory, attributing it to having lived a long life. His tone then shifted as he explained that he had something he'd like her opinion on. Intrigued, she asked him what it was. He looked at her directly and posed a monumental question, asking for her thoughts on disbanding her party, Holy Sword, and in its place, becoming Japan's very first S-rank adventurer. The proposal left her momentarily speechless, a quiet sound of confusion escaping her lips. He began to explain his reasoning, reminding her that Japan is the only country with an origin gate that lacks an S-rank adventurer. He confessed that the nation has only endured for the last 40 years by deceiving the public into believing the dungeons are a blessing, a desperate measure born from the massive casualties suffered due to their slow response when the gates first appeared. His objective, he declared, was to form a new party composed of chosen adventurers, with her at its very center. Their ultimate goal would be to make a serious attempt at conquering the origin gate. He emphasized the gravity of the role, explaining that the international definition of an S-rank adventurer is an individual who can change the future of their country. Looking her straight in the eyes, he addressed her by her full name, Hagane Ko, and formally asked her to become the hope of their people. She stood silently for a moment, processing the immense weight of his words. After a pause, she quietly replied that she was overjoyed by the praise he was giving her. She hesitates, then voices her primary concern. Accepting the offer would mean her current party of four could no longer continue as it is. The president confirms her understanding, stating with gravity that this is a serious conversation. The new party, he explains, will be composed solely of top-ranking adventurers. She counters his point, insisting that her strength is not her own, but comes from having her three friends by her side. A party's true power, she argues, isn't just the sum of its members' individual strengths. The president listens, then offers a path forward. The party composition will be reviewed every few years. If her friends are truly worthy, he suggests, they should be able to catch up to her sooner or later. His expression hardens as he delivers a stark reality check, telling her that she must understand she can't remain a child forever. Before she can respond, the office door flies open and Raid Commander Hayudu rushes in, shouting for the president. He delivers grim news. The purple seniors who went to Yokohama have returned half destroyed, with one confirmed fatality. The president's face darkens at the report, admitting he hadn't imagined the situation would be too much for even the purple seniors. Hayudu confirms that it is a stampede dungeon, located dangerously close to a city, requiring an immediate response. Ko, overhearing, immediately asks if that's what has happened. Without a moment's hesitation, she slams her hands on the desk and pleads for them to be sent to handle the crisis. Her request is granted. Moments later, Hagane Ko and her party, Kajura Kaikeru, Itomi Kakuri, and Ashitori Yukiko, are airborne, speeding towards the danger zone on a large, magically propelled paper construct. As they travel, Kakuri notices Ko's troubled expression and asks if something is wrong. Ko quickly dismisses her concern, claiming it's nothing. Her teammates are not convinced. Kakuri and Kaikeru immediately call out her lie, while Yukiko asks with concern if what she said is truly a lie. She blushes, wondering aloud if her turmoil is truly that obvious, reasoning that it's only natural after they've been together for so long. From nearby, Kaikeru dryly remarks that their leader is the worst liar in Japan. He watches her, a somber understanding in his eyes. Yukiko chimes in, observing that Ko just keeps getting more amazing, while Kakuri agrees, calling the S-rank promotion both an honor and a great responsibility. The question hangs in the air as Yukiko asks directly if she plans to accept the offer. Ko falters, unable to form a response. The words then spill out in a rush of emotion. She confesses that she can't bear the thought of being separated from them all and refuses to dedicate her life to a path she is forced to take. In response to her outburst, her teammates offer only support. Kakuri smiles warmly, assuring her that no matter what happens, they will stay by her side, a sentiment Kaikeru quietly affirms. Touched by their loyalty, Ko realizes that perhaps conquering this dungeon together, as the four of them, will be the most convincing argument they can present upon their return. With her resolve hardened, she offers a simple thank you, spotting their destination ahead. A dark, ominous energy swirling over the city. She points forward and gives the command to it. Under a sky crackling with lightning, a desolate, rocky path stretches onward. The journey has been grueling, feeling like a full sprint marathon to those who traverse it. Kajura Kaikeru reflects on their struggle with a heavy heart. He feels he worked twice as hard as anyone, handling both scouting and support, yet he still believes he came up short. A persistent doubt about his own capabilities gnaws at him. Tsukage Tsukasa acknowledges the difficulty of their path. She remarks that without the information they gathered from previous failed attempts, their small party would never have been able to make it this far. Her words hang in the stormy air as the party, Kaikeru, Tsukasa, Itomi Kukuri, and Ashitari Yukiko, finally stand before a massive, ornate door, the entrance to their final objective. Just as they prepare to enter, Hagane Ko appears, urging them to hurry. She reminds Kaikeru that their allies outside are holding off a monster and won't last forever. With a determined look, he confirms he is ready and steps forward to breach the door. The moment he passes the threshold, the world warps. Kaikeru is suddenly alone in a stark white, cubic chamber. In another space, Tsukasa and Kukuri realize with alarm that the party was separated the instant they entered. Tsukasa grimly concludes they are facing a gimmick boss. He frantically scans his empty surroundings, realizing Ko is not with him. His gaze darts around until it locks onto a floating, window-like portal. Through it, he sees Itomi Kukuri and cries out, spotting her in another chamber. The view through the portal reveals a terrifying sight. Kukuri stands alone, weapon drawn, facing a colossal warrior in black, spiked armor. The enemy looms over her, its sheer size a silent threat. Kaikeru instantly identifies the armored figure as the boss. Elsewhere, Tsukasa struggles, trapped. Facing the behemoth, Kukuri's expression is grim. She assesses its power, realizing it is likely stronger than any monster she has ever fought before. Trapped but not helpless, Tsukasa channels her power. With a defiant shout, she unleashes a devastating technique, crying out its name, Hand of the Death God. Her most powerful assault dissipates without leaving a single mark. She stands alone, completely cut off from her companions, realizing she is trapped in what feels like a room of judgment. As she grapples with her isolation, Kaikeru watches in horror from his own separate space. The massive armored boss swings its blade down towards Itomi Kukuri. He shouts for her to watch out, a dreadful realization dawning on him about what this kind of encounter typically means. Kukuri manages to parry the heavy blow just in time. Watching her struggle, Kaikeru's suspicion solidifies. He understands now. They're facing a boss that cannot be defeated until they each fulfill a specific condition within their isolated chambers. He shouts encouragement towards the ethereal barrier separating him from Kukuri, urging her to hang on while they figure out a solution. From her side, her expression determined, she simply acknowledges his words with a calm okay. While Kukuri holds the line against the main boss, Tsukasa attempts to take action in her own empty dimension. She prepares her power, calling forth a Shikigami, but her summons fail to manifest. The space is utterly barren. From his vantage point, Kaikeru confirms there is no apparent exit. Tsukasa herself realizes the problem. There is nothing in her room to fight, not even an invisible foe, which is unusual for this type of challenge. This lack of an opponent in her room contrasts sharply with Kukuri's struggle. Kaikeru watches her strain against the boss's power, a grunt of effort escaping her lips. He concludes with alarm that if even someone with Kakuri's amazing skills is having such a difficult time, the boss must be of an exceptionally high level. Trapped within a stark white, cubic room, Kajura Kaikeru forces himself to remain calm, scanning his surroundings and trying to focus on what he can do. From another location, Ashitari Yukiko's voice cuts through, shouting that his room is the lowest one. Following her own call, Yukiko unleashes a powerful blast. Observing from afar, Tsukige's Tsukasa confirms that Yukiko's attacks are indeed having an effect. However, she grimly notes that this is terrible news, as it reveals the clear condition for these rooms is to deal a massive amount of damage. The implication of this discovery dawns on Kaikeru. He stares up in dismay, realizing with a jolt of panic that he possesses no offensive attacks whatsoever. He quickly deduces that this means he must rely on traps. But as he attempts to channel his power, he finds it has no effect on the structure of the room. It doesn't budge an inch. Tsukasa, watching his efforts on a monitor display, understands his strategy. She sees that he is now resorting to using his equipment. Kaikeru's frustration mounts. He realizes he doesn't have much equipment with enough mana to properly trigger his traps. The thought that this won't work and that he'll run out of items before he can succeed fills him with dread. As his hope dwindles, Yukiko strikes again with a resounding crash, her resolve unwavering. Her attack is successful. One of the glowing marks on her target vanishes. She has met the condition, but a flicker of uncertainty crosses her face. Kaikeru clutches his last piece of equipment, his sword. Overwhelmed by his powerlessness, he slams his fist into the floor with a curse of pure frustration. Sensing his despair, Yukiko shouts encouragement. She tells him not to give up, promising she can keep fighting for as long as he needs. She implores him to think of something, anything, to turn the tide. He watches in horror as Yukiko desperately fends off the relentless assault. The clash of steel echoes as she fights, and in a moment of sheer panic, he screams out a different name, Ko. As she is thrown back, he tries to force himself to stop watching, tormented by his helplessness. He thinks about how Ko saves so many people and shouldn't be defeated here. The thought of only being able to watch fills him with anguish, but then he catches himself, realizing that line of thinking is wrong. His internal conflict resolves into grim determination. With his gaze lowered and his fist clenched tightly, he commits to a new course of action, internally declaring that his trap is now set. From the other room, Tsukasa sees the sudden shift in his posture through the strange window connecting their spaces. Alarmed by his intense expression, she calls out his name in concern. He braces himself as a dark, violent energy erupts from his arm, forcing a pained grunt from his lips. Sweat beads on his face as he endures the backlash, steeling himself to do it again. He shouts that the pain is fine, but Yukiko's voice cuts through from the other side, pleading with him to stop, warning that he is going to maim himself. His desperation overrides her concern. He yells back, questioning what it matters if he loses an arm, as long as it means he can help the person he believes is Ko. Meanwhile, Yukiko stands firm before the massive, armored boss. Her sword is at the ready, her expression resolute as she faces the silent, imposing figure that has thwarted her at every turn. She surges forward once more, unleashing a furious barrage of strikes. Her blade flashes against the boss's dark armor, but each blow is effortlessly parried, deflecting her attacks without yielding an inch. As Yukiko regains her footing, Ko's voice urges her to remain calm. Breathing heavily, Yukiko insists that she is calm. She clarifies that her earlier statement, that her attacks were ineffective, was merely a conjecture based on their past experiences, hinting that she has another idea. She grits her teeth, refusing to accept the situation. She declares that she cannot back down without first giving the fight everything she has. Following her declaration, she becomes a whirlwind of motion, unleashing a furious barrage of attacks against the armored Oni boss. Her sudden ferocity is astonishing, a complete reversal from moments ago when she was on the defensive. Her blades strike the boss's armor repeatedly, but they fail to leave a mark. A voice calls out to her, warning that simply cutting at the armor is useless and that she shouldn't exhaust herself for no reason. As her assault proves ineffective, Kaikeru remains on his knees in the adjacent chamber. His arm has become monstrously swollen and dark, pulsing with a terrible power as he endures the agonizing process. The self-inflicted damage has an effect. A complex pattern on the floor around him begins to glow, responding to his sacrifice. From her chamber, Yukiko watches this development with wide-eyed shock. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Ko analyze the situation from their own vantage point. Tsukasa remarks that the immunity of certain monsters has always been a puzzle. Ko speculates, wondering if this means there's a mechanism within the dungeon itself that absorbs the damage, but questions how that could be possible. Ko's voice reaches Yukiko, who seems to draw strength from just hearing her name. Ko continues her thought, realizing that for Yukiko's attacks to overcome such a defensive mechanism, the sheer amount of power required would have to be massive. In the other room, Kaikeru continues to channel energy. She looks on with genuine admiration, murmuring that Yukiko is truly amazing. The praise reaches Yukiko, who, despite her efforts, feels that Ko is the one who is truly incredible, far more than she could ever hope to be. Bolstered by this exchange, she lets out a fierce cry, channeling all her resolve into her weapon for a decisive strike. Her powerful blow connects, not with the boss, but with the very fabric of the dungeon room, which shatters like glass around her. The unexpected result leaves Kaikeru, Tsukasa, and Ko staring in stunned disbelief. His mind drifts back, pulled into a memory of a desolate, snow-dusted field. There, Ko stands alone, her hair tied back differently than he's used to, two katanas held at her sides. Her expression is somber, her form silhouetted against a stark white backdrop. She was looking down at him. In this memory, he is a pathetic figure, collapsed on the ground in utter defeat. The memory sharpens. He recalls Ko rushing to his side, her face a mask of concern as she cried out his name. He, in turn, could only look up at her, stunned and ashamed, and stammer an apology. She reached for him, closing the distance between them without hesitation. Ko embraced him as he sat defeated. He confessed his failure to her, admitting that he had given up. This was after she had been officially recognized as an S-rank adventurer, a fact that only deepened his sense of inadequacy. The memory brings a wave of self-recrimination. At that point, he had already surrendered all hope, abandoning the belief that he could ever stand on equal footing with his comrades. Because he had already given up in his heart, the outcome was inevitable. His party, the famed Holy Sword, kicked him out. They were granted a grace period before their attempt to conquer the Origin Gate, a time during which the party's fame grew, leaving him further and further behind. The painful memory fades as his gaze locks with Tsukasa's in the present. A fire ignites within him. He makes a silent apology to Ko and a firm promise to himself. He will not run away anymore. The clash of steel rings out as Tsukasa and Kaikeru struggle to parry a powerful blow from Higen Ko, the force of the impact radiating outwards. Seeing the overwhelming force, Agino asks Kaikeru if they should make a temporary retreat. He grimly assesses the situation, noting that while he can currently match Ko's speed, he cannot lock blades with her for more than a few seconds. He rejects the idea of falling back, declaring to his comrades that their dream of reaching the Origin Gate will be lost forever if they retreat now. With a defiant roar, he rallies them to fight for victory, and the entire team, Tsukasa, Agino, the Armored Knight, and Yuzui, shouts their agreement. The Armored Knight explains the main trait of their opponent. Ko's sword possesses the power of white lightning. Even just swinging the blade fires off first-class range shockwaves, forcing Tsukasa to frantically dodge the energy blasts. She continues her grim analysis, warning that if Ko manages to get close and land a direct hit with the blade, the result will be a one-hit kill. Despite the lethal stakes, Tsukasa's expression is one of pure exhilaration. She shouts that she has always wanted to fight Ko and challenges her to bring on. She realizes that as long as Ko can swing her sword freely, no one else can attack. Understanding that she is the only one who can get in range, Tsukasa charges forward, determined to stop her. She commits to staying within Ko's deadly range, even if it costs her life. Seeing her create this opening, the Armored Knight declares it's their chance. Agino agrees, and they decide to initiate Formation A. As the others move to engage, Yuzui holds her position, gathering an immense amount of magical energy as she prepares to unleash a devastating long-range attack. The Armored Knight lays out the plan. Formation A is a long-range sniping tactic for bosses. While the other three keep Ko occupied, Yuzui will land the killing blow with her incredible magic. The armored warrior plants herself firmly before Yuzui, shield held high. She shouts her resolve, declaring that her duty is to protect Yuzui-sama and that she will not allow a single threat to pass. Behind her stalwart defender, Yuzui requests 1 minute to prepare. She understands the stakes are high. She will likely only have a single opportunity and must pour all of her mana into the attack. As she gathers her power, Kaikeru assesses the battlefield. He believes that if Yuzui unleashes her full strength, she can penetrate Ko's defenses. However, he suspects their opponent is too skilled to simply stand and accept the blow. He rallies his comrades, shouting for Tsukasa to advance. The three of them, Kaikeru, Tsukasa, and the Armored Knight, charge in unison, their success dependent on this coordinated assault to pin down Ko. The Armored Knight is the first to engage, her blade meeting Ko's in a shower of sparks. She is immediately taken aback by her opponent's incredible speed, questioning if she can even keep up as Kaikeru moves into support. He and Tsukasa press the attack from multiple sides, a flurry of coordinated strikes aimed at overwhelming their target. Yet, Ko effortlessly deflects their combined assault, her defense impenetrable. Seeing her poise, Kaikeru roars for them not to let her escape. The trio closes in, trapping Ko in a vortex of steel, but he grimly notes that their opponent is far too skilled to miss any opening they present. Despite being outnumbered, Ko internally acknowledges the terrifying reality, with all three of them attacking at once. The fight has finally become an even match. Meanwhile, Kaikeru determines that to create an opening for Yuzui, he must use his Shadow Stitch ability, but realizes there is a problem. The complication becomes clear. Ko is already on guard, anticipating his move. He understands that she must know about his skills, a consequence of his own memories, assuming she possesses knowledge of his class abilities. Forced to adapt, he considers his options. Only one path remains: his arrow symbol combinations. He reasons that if this is a skill Ko is unaware of, it could be the key to catching her by surprise and securing their victory. As the coordinated assault began, Yuzui announced from her position that she was ready. All she required was a clear shot at the target. To create that opening, Kaikeru, Tsukasa, and the armored knight charged Ko simultaneously. The sudden three-pronged attack caught Ko by surprise, a flicker of alarm crossing her face as she realized her predicament. Tsukasa was the first to reach her, leaping through the air with her blade descending. But with astonishing speed, Ko evaded the strike. Kaikeru could only watch in disbelief as the armored knight cried out that their target had gotten away. Refusing to let the opportunity slip, Kaikeru declared this was their chance, unleashing a new combination: arrow symbol plus ignite. He immediately followed with shadow stitch, causing dark, sharp bindings to erupt from the ground. He knew he couldn't hold someone with her immense power for long, but he gambled that a few seconds would be enough. The gamble paid off, partially. The shadow tendrils pierced Ko's blade, pinning it to the ground and drawing a startled cry from her. Her sword may have been trapped, but Ko was not. She unleashed a blast of energy with such speed that Kaikeru, reeling from the immense mana he felt, could only shout a warning to Tsukasa and realize he needed to dodge. The force of the blast threw Kaikeru backward. He grunted in pain for the impact, but across from him, Ko strained against her bonds, her expression hardening with defiance. She was not done yet. She could still fight. With her sword still locked in place, she focused her will. She understood she had to keep her weapon locked in this struggle, and then she would make her move. She moves with blinding speed, her blade slicing through the air as she darts past Tsukasa. Her momentum carries her into a ferocious, spinning slash, a whirlwind of controlled violence. From the ground, Tsukasa watches in disbelief, realizing with dawning horror that Ko is also a master of martial arts. Ko then leaps high into the air, her body wreathed in a brilliant aura of mana, sword poised for a devastating downward strike as the others watch from below. The sheer power on display stuns her teammates. Kaikeru admits he completely misjudged her mana reserves, while Tsukasa finds it unbelievable that she was this strong even 5 years ago. Yuzui adds that Ko is accomplishing all of this while still bound by the shadow stitch. Her aerial attack connects, striking the armored knight with a powerful blow that elicits a cry of pain. As Ko moves in for the finishing blow, Kaikeru frantically searches for a way to intervene. He realizes he's not fast or strong enough to intercept her directly, but a desperate idea begins to form. There's one other way to keep her in check. His mind flashes back to the past, to the Reize adventure training grounds. In the memory, a younger Kaikeru lies injured on the ground before a wall riddled with holes. Agino screams his name in a panic, rushing to his side, while younger Tsukasa asks what on earth he did to cause such damage. As Agino tends to him, Tsukasa questions the reckless boy. He admits he tried combining 3 traps by stacking 3 arrow symbols. Tsukasa remarks that he attempts such things quite often. As she raced to intercept, Kaikeru's mind flashed back to his early experiments with trap fusion. He recalled discovering that the ability to combine traps seemed to be an inherent property of the arrow symbol, making it easy to stack. However, attempting to combine 2 other types of traps without the arrow symbol caused the mana consumption to increase to an insane degree. The memory of one such failed experiment was vivid. A room completely torn apart by dark, thorny growths erupting from the floor and pillars, a testament to the uncontrolled power he had unleashed. The flashback faded, his expression hardening in the present. In the background, Tsukasa noted the incredible amount of mana being used, remarking that a certain technique put too much of a burden on her body to try again for now. Kaikeru, however, came to a firm conclusion. Their opponent was not someone they could defeat without taking a few risks. Acting on that resolve, Tsukasa sprang forward. With a determined cry, she began to set a trap, her sword tracing a complex sigil on the ground as she combined 3 distinct symbols: arrow, slash,